Oh, okay. Oh my God. That's great.
Good. How are you doing?
Well, earlier.
Are you prepping for tomorrow night? Or just kind of wing it? There's a better way to do things.
The forums are not long.
We already know anyway.
Is it Memorial Union?
It's the black and gold room,
Oh, it's not the one.
isn't it? The black and gold room? Which I can't remember, is that the big one or the smaller one?
That's the big one. That's the big one. First one.
Is it the one right up from the stairs?
So it's not what it was.
Yeah, it's gotta be the smaller one.
It is in the Memorial Union, downstairs to the left.
Oh, yes, in the union, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, because before it was downstairs.
And Conrad,
Just in that
Wait until Mike asks my question.
What?
I can come in and ask
so
questions.
not, you know,
They have to be screened.
you know, and
No, not the board members. Board members can just show up, they put us right up in the front, and then they give us a free break right off the bat.
you look at their deck or stuff,
That might liven things up.
Oh,
Bring
yes.
it.
music, art,
Marty, you don't scare me anymore.
Yeah.
I made it through you, and I still survived.
you know, he
I bled a little bit, but I
being all about
survived.
going to college, now you can kind of see him, ooh, reality's starting to set in, that's a long ways away.
Where's it going?
KU.
And then they parked me right beside
He
you.
took a ski trip with
Yeah.
some buddies, and it was
The
supposed to have been 5 days.
funny part
They
about
came
when I
after
went to
4.
that forum, I was the first guy to get a
They were,
question. They asked me about what I thought about.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
And of course, those, you know, there's those things, fake IDs and everything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I came home a day early.
What do you think about that?
I would have never guessed that.
You think next standards, or you just?
That's for another day, you know? Hey, car broke down, sorry, Mom and Dad.
Bring out receipt to pay to fix it.
But they're not very ornery, you know? They're almost boring, which is just fine.
Yeah. Never complain about that.
Where'd they go?
Copper.
That was a great way to start the form. Saying, I
I
don't
wanted
know.
to go out
Now,
to,
did you have to give a little
like
minute
Granby,
to have spiel?
which would be close
Tell
to,
them where you're from, just tell them where
Breckenridge
it's started,
and
I'll just get into the Flintstone.
that's,
Call the USD 489 Board of Education work session for Monday, March 23rd, 2015 to order. The first thing is the consent agenda topics. Dean, do you want to start leading us through some of that?
Well, the board meeting minutes are there. Personnel transactions, I believe, and Craig is sitting here, we will have a candidate probably for middle school assistant by next Monday. I know that's the plan, so we'll see what we come up with, and hopefully that'll be included on the agenda. And under consent, that's just about all I have there.
Okay, we'll move on to discussion topics. Tracy, do you want to lead us through financial reports?
Sure. If the governor passes the block grant, we figured those calculations. We will be, we've been confirmed that we will take this year's audited numbers, and that is what we will receive. So we'll be $211,000 shorter than originally budgeted for this year based on our audit. And I don't have any concerns about being able to make that. We kind of shared some of those numbers previously through our savings and work comp and some different areas. So that is where we're at right now. They did introduce a new bill, had a webinar on it today. It's creating a new formula that is just as confusing as the one that we've had in the past. It's based on census numbers, census estimates. So we're still trying to figure all that out, but they are going to take it to hearing tomorrow and are kind of trying to rush it through. It will affect 6 school districts next year, up to 106 the following, and then everybody the year after that. So they haven't had any time to put anything together to see how it's really going to affect everybody, because there are different pieces of it that are very difficult to understand at this point. So we'll keep following that and let you guys know more as we,
Is that
if it
meant
goes
to
through.
replace the block grant in year 2, or is it meant to be the basis for the new formula?
It's the basis for the new formula, but it will be implemented for these first 6 schools next year, which will replace their block grant, and up to 106 districts the following year. So, and I don't know how those 106 will be selected at this point, or if it will happen.
Do you know the first 6?
We do. It's the innovative schools that have been labeled as innovative schools.
McPherson, KCK, Blue Valley, Concordia. Do you have it?
Hugoton, Blue Valley, Concordia, Marysville, McPherson, and Kansas City, Kansas.
We're not good enough to be that?
Yeah. There's an application process, they go through and they approve so many a year. And my guess is that it benefits schools, some more than others. I don't know. We don't have any idea how it would affect us. It's so convoluted that I couldn't begin to explain it. So
We'll see where it goes. Attached is the monthly financial report. The only thing I wanted to point out is exception number 14 under Washington for the purchased property services. That number is going to continue to rise and be over budget. That is the transition cost from capital outlay. So I just wanted to point that out, that that wasn't budgeted for the construction and things that we're beginning to do there. So you're going to see that number. But everything else is pretty normal. We're at 54% of our budget spent. Expect about 63 at this point, so we're doing fine. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Tracy?
So will you be sharing those same slides you did with us a couple weeks ago on the block grant, where we're going to be short?
I can do that.
Can you just, yeah.
Sure, yes, I can have
I mean,
those.
has anything changed?
It looks, and
Or would
correct
it
me if
look-
I'm wrong, I think it's
11,000.
211,000 off of the local option budget state aid that we would lose.
Okay.
But we would be able to still get that money, recoup that money from what the carryover is in our local option budget. So really, we wouldn't lose even that portion of it.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, the block grant, the way it came out is better for us than the other alternative where the governor did allotments that cut real dollars we couldn't make up. They did one thing that after I was pretty excited when I reported to you the first time about being able to collect that, leave that in the LOB state aid in the general fund and then collect it in the local option budget. The next day or day after, sometime very soon within, they changed that. And that it can no longer happen. So we would lose that in state aid. And the virtual piece, there's still a lot of things. When I went to Topeka then that week and talked to him about some of that, and honestly, I don't know how all of it's going to play out, but we're not going to be as bad a shape as what a lot of districts. I mean, just because we don't receive state aid in the capital outlay and some other things.
But yes, I can update that PowerPoint to the numbers that we have currently.
Yeah.
Sure.
When does that officially go into law, the block grant?
If the governor signs it.
Is there a
July.
date on that? July 1?
Oh,
Well, it would affect this year's budget
I
as
think he
well,
signed it this week.
but then the
He
next
signed it
2
this week?
years, yeah. Yeah.
He was supposed to sign it this week, wasn't he?
Yeah, he has it. Now that they introduced this other bill, who knows? I don't know where this other one came up. It just showed up today, and everybody's like, what in the world is this? So over the weekend, somebody had some time to...
Well, he was in Omaha. I seen him on TV.
It wasn't the governor, it was Senator Abrams. Yeah, I don't think he was in Omaha. Yeah.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
A couple things that, just to remind everyone that advanced voting is, has started at 718 Main at the county clerk's office. I think you have to go to that office to do the advanced voting. But that is going on right now, and then tomorrow night in the Black and Gold Room at Fort Hays State Union is the forum, 6:30, the city commissioner candidates are up, and then 8 o'clock, this Board of Ed candidates are up, and I guess we'll see everybody then at 8 o'clock. I know I just mentioned as far as middle school assistant principal candidates, we interviewed 3 good ones today. I know I had to leave right after the last interview, didn't get a lot of chance to talk to people, but I think that out of those 3, there'll be at least one that'll be interested and
Was it
do a good
internal or
job.
external?
Do what?
Were they internal candidates? Or?
1 internal, 2 external. There were 17, I think all the 17 were external. There were 17 on the web page, and I don't know, internally there was several more, but, so about 20,
Okay.
so it's not too bad. And that is all I have for this evening, anyway.
Okay. And then Rusty's not in the crowd, correct?
No,
Right
his
now?
son is actually getting married. He said he was going to try to make it by 8 o'clock. Why, I don't know, but his report, he has been working on the light bids for the gym, and I think, did this get included, Sarah? Is this on what Rusty had?
Yes, that's
Okay. But I know he'll visit with you about the new lighting bids. And then there was a question at the last meeting about facilities, and I don't want to, I'll tell you the way I understand this. It was asked what it would cost us if we looked at capital improvements over 10 years to do what was on basically the HDK list, and that would equate to $2,166,000, I'm rounding here, plus the $980,000 that we are using now for buildings and grounds budget. So a 10-year plan, we would have to spend $3,146,000 to address the issues that HDK had talked about, deferred maintenance and those things. Our budget isn't that high, so that isn't a possibility, obviously. And then a 15-year number, if we spread that over 15 years to try to get caught up with those items that HDK had identified, you'd be looking at $144,000, or $1,444,000 plus the $980,000 for a total of $2,424,000 to try to do that over 15 years, which again, in my opinion, I mean, it's not realistic because we have all those other expenditures out of capital outlay and stuff, but that gives you a ballpark of where we are. I know he'll have more of it, just in case I feel bad that he's going to try to get back even, but so if he doesn't, that's where we are with those numbers.
Hey, Dean.
Yeah.
On the lighting and stuff like that, I
Oh.
mean, I guess, just a quick question as far as, like with the gyms and the other stuff, is that where he's saying, I mean, is the gym, the lighting in the gym, I mean, pretty bad shape, that's the first part we need to replace, other than, like classrooms and things like that?
I think it would be the biggest payback.
Okay.
I mean,
As far as return.
quickest payback, and again, I don't want
Got
to
it.
put words in his mouth, but I think that would be one of the things that
Gotcha.
would help drive this, but he will, if he doesn't make it here, he'll talk
board
about it
meeting.
at the
Okay.
board meeting, but,
Do you know, Dean, is that going to LED as well? Or is that a question for Rusty?
Not bad price.
yeah, I mean, it's changing the,
To T5s probably, or?
Or T8s, I thought they said T8s from that high.
I thought the switch over that they're making in the high school already is LED.
it is.
Okay.
And that would be similar, I don't know, he has listed here using linoleum, I don't know what that is even.
They'll replace them online.
But he has the numbers for that, and he'll be presenting and explaining that as well.
Okay. Well, if he comes back, we may bring him up.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to discussion topic D, the authorization of the board president to sign the early Head Start grant. Dean, is that why Donna's here?
Yeah,
Is
I
she
mean,
gonna
do
come
you
present?
have anything to add, Donna? I mean, it's pretty routine, I think, for the,
Donna, can you come up to the mic?
This is just the federal early Head Start grant. I had talked to you before about those had been indefinite grant periods, and they've moved them to 5-year grant cycles. So this is the first year of our 5-year grant cycle. So it is a little bit bigger grant than what you've received in the past, just because they asked for a full grant again. So it's included up there. Do you have any specific questions or things that you would like to know about the grant?
You said a bigger grant as in paperwork-wise or dollar-wise?
Paperwork-wise, yeah. Documentation. Yeah, no, there was no cost of living or increases in the grant for this year. So, no, just additional.
Are there normally?
What?
Are there normally cost of living increases and things? They just didn't do it this year?
It just varies. Like, last year, we received about 1%. The year before, we were cut. So it just kind of goes up and down. This year, it's flat, so.
The 5-year grant, that's a guaranteed money for the 5-year?
Yes, yes. So it's guaranteed for 5 years, and then as they come out and do their monitoring reviews, they'll come out and monitor us a little more frequently, but on more specific topics. They'll come out and monitor us in year one. There's 3 different monitoring times they'll come out, and then in the 4th year, they will let us know whether we will recompete again for the 5-year grant or whether it will be open up to any competition. So it is in a 5-year cycle, and at the end of that 5-year cycle, you find out if you're the only one that can compete for that grant or if it would be open up to anybody in your area to compete.
Anybody have any questions?
This is just the application that we're approving, and then when do you hear back?
We'll hear back. The grant period starts in July, so usually we get our award notification May, June. But they're in contact with us anytime, so if they see any additional information or anything like that, they'll be calling us and letting us know we need this, or you need to relook at this. And I have a call with them Wednesday, and so we'll be going over what's in the grant so they know what's coming and that information.
Can this be on the consent agenda then, or? what-
Well, for the grant, it's really something
You need a
that
motion for
I need
that?
a
Okay.
motion for.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put that on the agenda.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Donna. Moving on to topic E, which would be technology update. Dean, do you want to introduce this one? Or do you want Brian to?
Yeah.
How's everyone doing?
Wonderful.
I haven't seen you guys in a while. So Technology Committee's got a kind of a brief update, and then we kind of have some questions for you guys as well, right? So we've gotten platform narrowed down. It looks like we will be pursuing an Apple and a Windows platform for K through 12, the digital learning plan to meet that. We are needing to go to next steps and to bid or send out an RFP for these devices. So in return, I asked kind of if we're okay with assuming moving forward with the $400,000 a year that we've currently budgeted, or what that's going to look like. Because I'm just trying to prepare myself not to send out multiple bids for numerous quantities of product. And with that, if you have any questions, I know that's kind of a shotgun statement, but.
Okay. Can you explain, you said the platform, you're doing 2 platforms. Can you
2
explain that
platforms.
in a little more detail?
K8 will be Apple, and then 9 through 12 will be Windows.
Can you give
And
us
then-
some background on how that unfolded, or what the reasoning is?
I think it'd probably be best if we talk about how we want to move forward with how we got there. Are you guys wanting presentations from those subcommittees? So what the tech committee did was put together subcommittees at each building, for each building level, I guess, elementary, middle school, high school. They then came up with kind of their needs requirements. They worked within their groups, found what their needs are. They did some tours of some various schools of different platforms. And then they had the experience of our Windows environment that we currently live in. Some decided that they best fit in a different environment, and some did not. So would you like to see those presentations from those subcommittees? Or
What were you planning?
my planning is to send this out to RFP and then kind of come with all of that in one shot. That's a big meeting, though.
Yeah.
So I assume really
to
the
do
only
that
thing that's
in
going
one
out for RFP would be the Windows boxes. There's no point in putting the Apple product out for RFP.
No, we'd buy that off state contract.
Okay.
So, and we could very well buy whatever's Windows device off state contract as well, but I think it'd be in our best interest to send it out for bid. We haven't gotten that far yet at the tech committee. We're having a meeting on Wednesday, so that's kind of why we're here, figuring out where we need to be heading for a direction so we don't come to you guys numerous times for different plans.
So each of the subcommittees that were put together in the deal, did they go through then and actually evaluate different platforms and things like that? How did that
Yeah,
happen?
we actually had presentations done by Microsoft and Apple. And like I said, we live in the Windows world right now, right?
Right.
So K through elementary really took to the Apple product quicker, and they went and did tours of other school districts. And then middle school, high school did the same thing for an Apple school district, and then they've also, like I said, we've lived in a Windows district for 8 years. So I think they know what we currently have. So, and then the subcommittees put together their recommendation of what they would want, whether that be certain devices in this age to this age, and so that's kind of what we're going off of, and we're finalizing that, I'm assuming this week and the following week, next 2 meetings.
Is that reasonable that we could hear from the subcommittees?
I think it is. Does it change your budget amount that you guys are willing to do? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, right? So we can kind of do all this, but is it going to change? I'm hung up on the dollar amount, right? What dollar amount do we need to be within? Because I'm trying to prevent the game of coming back 3 times for the same thing. And I'd like to be able to get in kind of an agreement of where we want to be and where we're okay with being, and then we can send it out to bid. And we can do that stuff in the meantime, but I think the big thing is to get the ball rolling to get the RFPs out.
And so what is your recommendation, whether it's the Apple and the Windows, or you're looking at 1-to-1 then for everybody?
The tech committee's recommendation is going to be 1-to-1. I mean, that's.
And are we looking at a phased approach, or we're looking at just all or nothing, basically doing them all right off the bat?
We're looking at it all right off the bat.
Why are we not looking at a phase? I mean, as an example, I just saw an article actually today that somebody sent for Dodge City, who actually has done the iPads. Even Dodge City, being the size they are, actually phased in iPads. I mean, they did like 1,200 of them initially, did them on carts throughout the district, and then went through the next year and went through that. Why would we not look at doing something like that just to see how things work?
I think when you look at our numbers and our students and what we've been using, I think it's a total refresh is needed in at least a lot of our students, right? I invite you guys all to come to a tech committee meeting on Wednesday. I can invite you guys to them, and we can kind of hash out some of those questions. I don't want to get into that here, right? I mean, that's the tech committee was put together to give the recommendation. We've kind of got that recommendation. We're just trying to get kind of the bow tie put on this and present it to you guys and see where we need to head.
Well, ultimately, whether it's phased in, phased out, 1-to-1, not 1-to-1, at the end of the day, it comes down to what's the budget. I mean, they're only going to do what they can within the budget.
Right.
So devices, doesn't matter. How the system is implemented really doesn't matter. What do they have to work with? What's the best plan that they can put forth with that monetary range? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. I mean, the recommendation is going to be 1-to-1. If the budget doesn't support that, then we have to look at other options from there. So the subcommittee groups, they started at different quantities, and it's changed over as they've learned. So I think for me to speak on that, their behalf isn't probably right. I think I'd like to have them kind of come out and show you guys what their thoughts and wants are and why they think that is what they need.
We can ask those questions, I guess.
So are you able to give us sort of a dollar figure
I
without
think
the RFP?
we've been working on what we've currently had budgeted for since whenever the 400,000 a year for the next 4 years is what we've been. That's what we've been working off of budgetary numbers. I don't know if everyone's going to feel comfortable keeping that, but it'd be nice to know now before I send this out and find out that it's not going to be what we're comfortable with doing.
So
And I think with this big of a purchase, I want to prevent from having to go back to people numerous times.
Well, and that's why I guess I worry that we're not at the RFP stage. We're at the presentation stage. Let's hear what the recommendations are. I mean, when you say you can do it within that 400,000,
Are you going to recommend that we don't do one-to-one, though?
well,
I'm just asking what that recommendation from you would be during those presentations that would make you change the tech committee's
Because-
recommendation of one-to-one.
yeah, because I guess I don't feel comfortable just setting a blind amount. I mean, the 400,000 was based on we needed X number of laptops, right? Or how was that number set
400,000 is
previously?
based off of what previous lease payments have been.
And that was to give us what? What did we get with that 400,000?
You've got
for the lease?
staff and high school laptops.
Staff and high school laptops only. So there was no.
And there were some labs in that, but not, I mean, I can't. You got some desktops, staff, and high school laptops.
So I guess rather than setting an arbitrary amount that we've used in the past, I'd like to understand, here's what we want to do, and here's what we think it would cost us. And are we comfortable with that? Now, I know that's not what you want to do.
I'm asking for direction because
But-
I'm
How
just,
much is a one-to-one initiative all the way?
I
through
think
the
I can
whole
do
school?
it for 400. I think I can do it for that.
Across the
That's
board,
putting a computer in a kindergartner's hand,
I
one-to-one?
think so.
right off the bat, year one, or you're talking about over 4 years?
No, I think so. I think we can do it.
That's with a lease. You can't, for 400,000, you can buy 3,000 machines?
Close. 2870, maybe.
Which you got
29.
teachers and
And that's-
labs.
No, we got a plan. And that's why I say the plan isn't to put teachers, new devices in teachers' hands year one. It's students focused right now, right? So
Okay.
when we're talking one-to-one, remember what we're talking
They
about.
already
We're
have
talking,
new devices, don't they?
huh?
Well, they already have new devices,
Who?
teachers.
Well, they have a new device,
Yeah.
a new device type.
Yeah.
I would agree with that statement. But we're talking strictly student devices at this time. That's what we're talking. Student devices.
And that's even going PC at the high school?
But, Brian, to clarify, you couldn't do that for $400,000.
I could or couldn't.
Couldn't, if not a one-time purchase of $400,000.
It won't be a one-time purchase.
it
It'll
would
be
have
a
to be
four-year,
a four-year plan.
$400,000
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
purchase.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Not a one-time $400,000.
Okay.
We've budgeted $400,000 for the next 4 years, and that's what we're looking at.
Well, what about our maintenance, just overall maintenance of our system in our schools? Is that taking all of our technology money and putting it into devices and not keeping the
No,
rest of the infrastructure running?
you know, I want to hit on that because that's important, right? But, no, it won't be taking a hit. That won't be taking everything. I don't foresee us needing another upgrade to the infrastructure for some time, 4 or 5 years. The thing that we have to get out of the mold of replacing devices just to replace devices every 3 years. We can't replace stuff just to have the latest and greatest and newest. We need to start creating more of a plan. And like your phased in plan is great. Don't get me wrong, right? I like that approach. It's just we have how do you prioritize when we have such a large group that is in need, right?
But you're talking about K through 8 is the large need right now?
K through 8, but even our high school HPs are off lease, right? And they're not on, they don't have insurance, we'll call it, right? But so maintaining those going forward will be expensive to the school district without having that insurance from HP, accidental damage protection. So there's a cost associated with that, right? So they are in decent shape, but it's the maintenance that we'll have to deal with going forward. So at that point, I don't think that makes, I don't know if it'll make more sense to do nothing or something, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they bought those you buy a laptop with accidental damage protection, right? And that's a fee or a percentage. That was a 4-year accidental damage protection, so.
So are you planning then, Brian, on the apples lasting more than 4 years, using them more than 4?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't foresee you'd replace them unless that they're damaged. There needs to be put a plan in place for handling the damage. With those devices, we'd be self-insured. creating a plan more that way. From talking to other school districts, that makes a lot more sense than paying the insurance premium and then paying a deductible on top of it.
Is that something the subcommittee looked into as well, or is that your area?
I've been working on that more myself during my job. I got, right? I don't know how to say that, but I've been looking at doing that myself. I mean, I've been looking at that myself. I have information I've presented to the tech committee, but at the end of the day, I don't know if that's a tech committee responsibility. I think that's probably more something that we would handle within IT and make that recommendation ourselves to the tech committee of how we'd want to handle that. Because they're not the ones that would be handling that on a day-to-day basis. Tech committee's been kind of more driven just on the student devices and what this needs to look like. From the management platform and those types of things, IT has really been researching more of that than the tech committee has, because we'll be the ones implementing it and using it. But that's what I got. I mean, I'm open to suggestions of how you guys want to see this, what you guys would like to do. I hope kind of what I say makes sense. I just don't want to send something out there and come back and then we don't do it and we do it again. And I just don't want to lose credibility with our vendors for the most part.
So what you're asking for is 1.6 million over 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to keep...
6 years or
4 years.
4 years?
And you're able to keep the infrastructure up and running?
Mm-hmm.
What,
But you won't have any money for that. If it doesn't.
Insurance program?
No.
No, the infrastructure.
You're gonna tap it all.
If we're tapping it all for one-to-one initiative, that's what would scare me. is-
You got to remember where we live, right? I mean, 802.11ac is the next thing out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wireless, 10 gig would be the next thing we go to from here. We don't have the desire. I don't have the desire or the justification to upgrade to that at this point for our school district. I don't think that the benefits are there for us as a school district, and I think our infrastructure is going to be sitting in a very good place for a while without major investment. We have routine maintenance that we're going to have to keep up on it for annual support and maintenance, but you're talking $16,000, $17,000 a year, right? And that's through the E-rate program. That's all E-rateable now. There's a lot of things that the wireless infrastructure is now, it's going to be E-rateable. So we can do a lot of things through E-rate with that. I don't have a concern about the infrastructure.
Is there any way to do 1.2 million and keep 400,000 in for that? Or is that just throw the whole plan into a tailspin?
I don't know. I need to, and that's why I asked that, right?
You're asking for my advice.
I can assure you that we couldn't do a one-to-one for under 400,000 for 4 years.
To what grade level could we get from senior and high school? What grade level could we get down to on 1.2 million?
I don't know that answer right now.
I like that answer. If it gets me to second grade, then maybe I can justify kindergarten through second, having a lab, and then start in third grade or fourth grade with one-to-one. Personally, I have a hard time with a one-to-one for kindergartners that we're already subsidizing. So, and I know if there's people out there, the kindergartners are not going to like that.
No,
But
it is what it is,
to say, we're already subsidizing kindergartners because we're only getting paid for half, and then we're giving them a one-to-one initiative.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough pill to swallow for me, and I may be the only one up here saying that.
Well, I think to follow up on that, I mean, this plan is one of the premier plans that we could have. I mean, the Apples are the high-end device. So for me, the question would be is, could we look at, in the elementary level, not one-to-one, K through 2, K through 5, and have carts, or that each grade or each class has 5 to 8 devices versus one-to-one, or maybe there's enough for that each kindergarten at each building has enough or one set that will cover all 3 sections and they can share them. That's the tough part for me. I know you're looking for a number and I can appreciate where you're at on that, but for me the hard part is to say, well, here's the money, but not be able to look at it and say, well, we've got over here saying, well, we got to wait at least 15 years to do the infrastructure upgrades, and we don't even have enough money to do that. And you're trying to balance an educational need against a building need, and that's difficult in and of itself. But, I like the idea of, could we have, I'd love to be able to see, and I don't want to create too many areas in between here to create a bunch of work for you guys, but one thing that'd be nice to know is what's just the bare bones level that we have to have, or that the tech committee thinks we must have to just meet the testing standards we have. And then, maybe something in between there that's a mid-level with a couple of a la carte items that we could add on to say, that.
I agree 100%. And I've been there, right? I've had these conversations with various staff members across the district. And once you start talking to them and hearing their justification, it gets difficult to judge them for that justification, right? So it's someone else's needs. I haven't been able to put that's not a priority or it is a priority, right? And right now I think, like I said, the tech committee is going to recommend 1-to-1. Now, I guess if that's not going to be in the cards, then we're going to probably have to sit down and have a conversation to find out what direction we want to be heading in.
Well,
I said this back in November, right, that we're trying to hit a moving target. You can't.
I think your first year here, we like options. We don't ever like one option. This is option A, and that's our only option. We like an A, B, C, D option. You know that.
I know, but you guys always like E, right? I mean,
Well,
I mean, we bring A, B, and C, but there's always an E that we have to go dig up.
yeah.
So,
E's usually based upon your A, B, C, and D, or a slight modification. I think that.
I mean, if that's not to cut you off, but if that's, I would encourage you guys to come to the technology committee then and have these discussions because, like I said, the recommendation is going to be,
Well, surely they're watching us right now.
well,
When is the next one?
Wednesday.
Well, I think
This
that
Wednesday?
Wednesday at 3:45.
the drawback to that is we can each go, but at the end of the day, each one of us individually is just a person.
It's an opinion.
And, to me, I think it's best if we're going to have a presentation, because whether all of us can be there or not, it's, then 2 or 3 of us or 4 or 5 of us have some information that the rest of the board doesn't have. And I just, if this is that important, then I think we need to take the time and set it aside and have them come and present and tell us why it is. And at the end of the day, that's their recommendation, I understand that, but we've got to look at things other than just technology.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, and we've got to try and look at the big picture, and we hope we make the best decision with the dollars we have, and there'll be people out there to debate that forever, whether we did. How do you weigh out the different factors? And so, if we can go with some sort of a step back approach, and still have devices that are available, and that cost is $400,000 over 4 years, or hopefully it would be half the price, and it would be even better. But then you've got other options. But could we go with a Android-based platform that's maybe $50 a device cheaper or something? One of the questions I have is, what are we going to be running on the equipment? What is the cost of that? Because I think if you get to that, it gets more to the justification of why you need that platform.
You're talking software, right? You're talking software, you're talking apps, you're talking, all the districts that I've talked to, and I'm not going to speak for all the different subcommittees, but the thing that they do is they don't go app happy, right? And that's what they call it. Don't go app happy. Focus on your core apps that you want, and start building off of that. I think it's Garden City. I might misspeak, so if that's Garden City, sorry. But they don't buy apps. It's free from the App Store. I mean, they work within what is available for free. If they buy something, they do it from another means or another way. We haven't gotten that far down this road. We have the mindset that we won't be going app happy this first year. We will be getting them in, discovering what they can do, and going from there. But it's a valid concern. But we also have software budget that we budget every year, that some things were purchased maybe this year that won't need to be purchased next year. There's ways in the budget to free up, and I don't think that'll be a problem for them. It won't be adding onto what we additionally spend.
I guess, I don't understand why it would make a difference on which plan and how much. You know, we've got the numbers in front of us, we see the outlay projections. We can only afford so much per year. So if 400,000 a year gets us to 1-to-1, and we think that is too much money to spend on it, then I don't know why we would need to see 3, 4 multiple devices. I don't understand why that would change how much we would spend or not spend. It's like buying a house. I'm gonna know how much I can spend on a house, and I can either put all of it into the smallest, most ornate house, or I can get the biggest piece of crap and fix it up how I want to. The money is the money. We see the projections. We know what we need to spend over the next several years. So I guess I don't understand why we need multiple reports to come back and look at all these different scenarios. Can we afford this? No. What can we afford? Because the way this sounds, it's like, wow. I mean, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort when I think it's our duty to come up with a budget for them to work within and put together the best plan within that budget constraint.
And that's kind of why I'm here asking where we're at, right? I need a number to work off of, and that we're going to be comfortable with moving forward. And if it isn't what we got currently budgeted, then we need to probably have that conversation of what it needs to look like.
I think for me, and I'm just speaking for me, but in the time I've been on the board, in the last 10 years, we've invested between $10 and $15 million over that time period in technology. And much of that technology is no longer here, and what we're proposing would replace everything we have except for the wireless infrastructure, maybe some servers. And so when you value what we still have left, I'd be hard pressed to find $500,000 of equipment that'll be left for that $10 to $15 million investment. And then we're going to keep pumping it into it. And I understand technology changes and you've got to update it. But the question for me is why are we buying it? What do we hope to gain from it? And, you know, as a board member, we've got to justify the expenditure. You know, and Josh is right, it isn't just a dollar number. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to prove a dollar figure. The question is can we justify that? And that's, I don't know that it's, I mean, you're not going to help us answer that, but you're going to give us some information that would assist in each one of us making that decision. And it'll be different for everybody, I imagine.
Oh, I agree.
I agree with you on that. You know, we need to see the justification. That's when I would like to see, here's what we think we can afford, because we're not approving you to spend it. Even if we say this is the budget we want you to work for, here's the plan, come put it together, it may or may not be approved. I mean,
I sure hope we feel comfortable with what we're working within, though.
Right, but that is the ultimate
Yeah.
reality. There could be something there that just doesn't make any sense to all or a few.
I mean,
But the justification to me would be then in what is the plan being put forth, and then that's when I would like to hear, this is why we want to do this. I just don't understand why the dollar figure would change based on what the plan is. We can only afford what we can afford. So I don't understand why the holdup on us coming up with a budgetary number to work within. Whether it's $1, whether it's 400,000. I just don't understand why it would take so long for us to figure out a budget for this.
Because we don't know what we're getting from Topeka. It changes by the year. We're making a 4-year projection here, and they can change what we're getting tomorrow. They've done it to us the last 2 years.
And I understand that, Marty, but then that would be every year. So then you could never put together a large-scale plan, because you can always say,
Well, you
we
don't want
know
to
what
be
we're gonna
against
get.
the ceiling. If they give us more money, that's one thing. But, you know, if we've budgeted 1.6, I understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But if Topeka turns around next year and says, well, the block grant didn't work either, this is what you're going to get. And we're already spent 1.6. Those cuts are going to have to come somewhere else.
And that's what I'm saying with that. We don't know those answers. So maybe 400,000 isn't what we want to do. Maybe we want to play it more conservative. But what difference does the plan make
Oh, the plan, yeah. Well,
on what the budget number is?
yeah.
Well, I think for me, where it would matter is this, is that one of the things we've talked about with this plan is we're going to just buy it all up front, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to use it over the next 2 years, versus, and I think this addresses some of what Marty's saying, is instead of doing a 4-year lease, why don't we do a 4-year phase? And we've talked about, we did last year with the wireless infrastructure, that we're not gonna buy it all at once. We had to last year because it was all outdated, but we're gonna gradually do this over time. So you don't have everything expiring at one point in time. And that's the first, when we first did this years ago, we had a middle school and elementary purchase, and we'd have a high school purchase. And we did that the first 4 years, and then we changed it to try and put it all together, hoping that it would increase our buying power. But, I mean, if we're buying apples off the contract, they shouldn't, I mean, a new device will change the cost next year, but the price should be close. So if we did say, we're going to do these this year, and whether it's, we try and hit some of everybody's needs that first year, or we just focus on K-5 or middle school or high school, those, I guess, would be things that we could rely on you guys as to who has the biggest need. Unfortunately, you'd have to be the one deciding who has the biggest need, but, and we can, we can make that decision based on your recommendations, but that might be the way to solve that. And, because we've got block grants for 2 years, but at the end of 2 years, if we're still locked in, it's got, the tough thing for us is if we don't budget it, we don't have to pay for it. But I think if you've already received the product, I think that might, at least we probably won't have the product anymore if we don't make the third lease payment, or I don't know how we'd end up with that, Bill. Maybe you could answer.
Well, you'll sign a lease purchase and then you'll lose the product.
Yeah.
If you decide not to budget in future years to make that payment.
So, I agree, you've got to have a budget to come up with a number, but, my only tough thing is I know our devices are outdated. I think your estimation of 4 years on an iPad, I hope you're right. I think you threw around 6 years at one point, and I really hope you're right on that. But I know, I fear that in 2 to 3 years, not that you're going to be the one saying it, but you're going to be hit up constantly with, they're too slow, we can't boot them up, or they don't do what we need to, and so they're so slow we quit using them. And after the apples, we got to that point. We got to it after the Dells.
But at that point, you at least got a product that's not worthless, right? And I don't say our current product is worthless, but we have a trend in Apple, we'll just call them iPads. They can retain their value. So that's the other side of it, right? You spend $300 for an iPad, you're going to get $100 back for it in 3 to 4 years. In the event that you need to get rid of them or upgrade, you wouldn't upgrade. You'd create your phase and your shift throughout this plan as needed and justified after they have devices. So yes, if they do have speed issues or battery issues or screen issues or whatever those would be, you got to start treating it more of why we're upgrading rather than, and at least that's my mindset, of just not upgrading because it's a new Retina display and it's great, but what are the reasons, right?
That's where I'm at with what we're doing right now, is why are we upgrading, other than...
Because we can't keep them running. We're spending more time of our day keeping the old technology up and running than you guys could ever imagine. I have a lot of things I don't get done during the day because I'm working on 8-year-old Dells or 8-year-old problems, and it's a hassle. And I don't have the staff, full-time staff, to support that demand for another year or 2 years or 3 years. We have to get to a point where we're working with current technology and not fighting batteries dying in the computer, the CMOS batteries, and we've worked on a lot of issues that throughout the day.
So Brian, I guess what I'm looking for is that type of information in addition to why the subcommittees feel they need 1-to-1 at K through 5 and at 6 through 8 and at the high school. You told us the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
You think that you could do it all, so I'm going to call that the Cadillac version.
It's more of a Buick, but we're not talking. We're in education. We don't have Cadillacs.
So I just want to understand, the detail behind that, and then I want to be able to ask the question. Okay, if we're not comfortable with the 1.6 million, because in my mind you're asking us to make a technology decision for the next 4 years, so I don't feel comfortable saying it's a $400,000 decision this year. I think that we need to be talking about that overall plan for the district. You know, but I want to be able to ask the questions, does that include teacher? You know, changing out the teacher laptops, because I've heard those are in
Yes,
pretty
that
bad
would-
shape. Does
that would
that
be phased in
include
as well.
replacing
Yeah.
the, you know, labs that we have at the elementary schools? And when they test, are they going to be using those labs? Or are they going to be doing it on whatever device you're planning for? I mean, those are the type of questions
Make
I
that
want to
a
be able to
plan.
ask.
We wouldn't be buying new labs at elementary schools.
Okay, but in 4 years, what if those go kaput? So where's the money for that going to come?
And our state assessment testing tool is now, what, second year in its life? I'd assume they'll make great strides in the next year and the years following that we won't need to have multiple devices for those tests. They're pretty close right now.
But what does that mean? That we don't need?
For the state
You wouldn't need
assessment
a
testing,
lab.
we wouldn't have to have the labs and
We
all
wouldn't have to have
the,
the labs, okay.
I mean, using that example,
Okay.
right? I mean, there's a few things that,
What would we be using,
the device we have in our hands.
which is the iPads at K
Yeah.
through 5? Okay. But in order to,
Next year, or?
Well, it depends on how the state does with their testing and how they get everything rolled into the same thing.
But
right?
assuming they make no changes.
Well, the only thing now that's not iPad compatible is the math performance, which is just a pilot. And there's such a demand out there with iPad initiatives that will be remedied by next year. They just didn't have time to do that before the testing went open, so should be fully compatible by next year.
okay, but so to support that in our district, we would need one-to-one in each of the classrooms, right? Or,
At 3 through 5 and above.
Oh, that's true.
3
That's
through
true.
8 in
Okay.
high school.
that's true, okay.
Sarah, I think we need to look a little bit further than that even, because the vision and the goals and the expectations that we laid out, this has been months in the planning. This is getting input from teachers, administrators, from the technology committee, from central office administration. That's predicated upon transforming education one-to-one. I think there's all kinds of misperceptions out there. I hear people all the time, well, K2, do they need it? K5, do they need it? I would suggest to you, in the research I've done, K2 and K5 may end up having more of a transformation in education with one-to-one than any other grade level. Particularly K2 with the touch mechanisms. Kids that can't read and write and so on well, not that they won't, but when they're not, touch technology is tremendous in that capacity. The usage of people and to do it, it's amazing what you can do, but it takes one-to-one. So not to go one-to-one is essentially going to say the vision, goals, and expectations we laid out are no longer applicable. Seriously. That needs to be accomplished by having the proper tools, and that was predicated upon the concept of one-to-one in large part. Now, we can not do one-to-one, but that vision goes and, won't be for that segment of kids. If we were sitting here right now today saying we're doing a reading basal textbook K-12, reading, language arts, English, there would be no discussion whatsoever by anyone about does every child need a book. In fact, if I suggested not every child needed that reading book, you would look at me like I'm nuts. Technology is the tool. That is the tool. That is how children, not their entire learning, we've said that all along, but that is a tool that will be a very strong tool for learning. It's not what they learn, it's how we fashion learning, how we move children forward in learning and so on. So I think this is a lot bigger issue than our whole vision and our goals and everything is predicated upon it. So really, if we're not looking one-to-one, all that's gone too, in my opinion, and needs to be completely refashioned. And it took months to come up with that plan. So I just want to give you another perspective to think about as a board. Technology is a strong tool. It's a necessary tool. We started a year ago. We were sitting here saying Technology is important to us. As administrators and teachers at that time, if you remember as a board, we had those discussions at work sessions. And we decided, yes, it is. And if technology is important to us, then we have to get infrastructure in place now, because a year from now, we're going to be talking about getting technology. Well, here we are. Fast forward a year. It's important to us. We knew that a year ago. We committed to that. We've got the infrastructure in place for the future. Now we need the technology piece. We have the vision, the goals, the expectations in place. Now we need the tools. We have this committee and everybody's come together. Now, does 100% of people agree? No. You'll never get 100% of people to agree on one thing. But we have a great deal of agreement with all of our staff that says, yes, we need these tools, iPads, K-8, every child. We didn't come in, when people are saying this is Cadillac, you got to remember something. We didn't come in and say we're taking iMacs that are $900 or $1,000 or $1,500 per kid and making that recommendation. And it's not that some people didn't bring that up. We said, no, we don't need that level. When we get down to iPads, and even mini iPads for K2, that was taking all those things into consideration, including cost. So this is not a Cadillac plan. This is a Buick or...
But it's not your same old Buick anymore.
Yeah. You can't say Buick.
The valets don't even know where they're.
That's right. Good point. Whatever it is, this is a middle of the line to begin with. But it's what we need to make it happen. So when Brian's saying we need to know a dollar amount, that's what we're saying. We've been working off this $400,000 budget now for several years, and at least the last year or two, in everything we brought up to the board, we've said we're predicating this upon $400,000. Now we understand the board can say at any point we're not going that much, but that's what we've been predicating a lot of this upon, and that's why we're now at the point of saying we're ready at $400,000. We've got a plan that'll make this work, and we'll move forward.
Are you comfortable, Dean?
I was just going to say, I mean, that's the capital would come out of capital outlay.
Yeah.
The 400,000, we have other items already budgeted in capital outlay for technology. I mean, looking at fiscal year 17, for example, 171,000 for district software, IT equipment upgrade 62,000, then the copier leases are there, and then the 400,000 for this. We have a lot of those dollars already figured that, you know, when you talk about being able to maintain software, those things, they're already included in there. When you look at capital outlay and block grants and all the things that are coming out of Topeka now, that is a local mill levy, and what they're doing is cutting the state aid in those things. We don't receive any state aid in capital outlay. Our dollar amount won't change. It's just based 8 mills on whatever the valuation is. Tracy had alluded to this plan that they just came up with. Even in that plan, Abrams was talking about basically doing an unlimited amount for, and this is to me kind of crazy, unlimited amount. The school board could set a mill levy for basically whatever. It couldn't be protested. It would, you know, for capital outlay, local option budget, whatever. That's the way I took it. It's, don't quote me on that, please. But everything that I hear coming from there is capital outlay, that type of fund that's local. They're not going to mess with that. So do I feel comfortable with 400? I think that is the max. I think we need to look at efficiencies and how we could do, you know, I don't know about phasing in, but do we need iPads for every third through 8th grade, or minis an option for some more, those types of things to look at total dollars. But yeah, I feel comfortable with what the plan, what we're looking at. More than comfortable, but yeah.
Does this include cases?
Mm-hmm.
Does this include the initial apps that we think are going to be needed? Or you're saying we're not going to spend any money on apps?
I don't think we're going to see a mad rush in app requests for purchase. We haven't seen it right now. We've had iPads in a lot of the teachers' hands since November. It's not, this ain't something, just to recap, just to kind of make sure we remember, right? November we did the pilot, right? And it's not going to be a wham. Their teachers are preparing for this, right? For their classrooms.
Have
It's
we
not a-
purchased any apps to go with the pilot?
I think that's,
I think under $20 worth of apps,
Total?
that we've had requested.
district-wide.
Okay.
Now, they purchased them on their own? We don't know.
It's an education world. We're using free ones. The ones they learn about are free. I mean, it's just, and, it is almost the curriculum piece and some of the other that we have budgeted other places. So we feel like we can definitely manage that within that means. It wouldn't be in addition to.
And we're not saying we're not gonna buy any apps, it's not a budget buster by any means. And there's so many things. One of the things we wanna do is when this decision's made, we wanna get busy on starting professional development.
Right.
And helping teachers and getting supports out there of what's out there and what's available, so that if all you have in your mind is apps, like Brian said, you don't wanna go app crazy. There's a lot more out there than just apps you buy if you have the knowledge. And that's what we want to get busy doing, is getting that professional development out there to teachers to know the other options that are there. But certainly there's going to be some apps, but it's not a budget list.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to mention is the paperless environment. So, rewind to January, December, where we were talking about a copy machine, right? And we're making the movement to go paperless. It's going to be hard to go paperless without the technology in classrooms.
Sure.
So we guys got to make sure we know what we're wanting to do, right? If we're wanting to go one direction, we stay in that direction, but make sure we keep the ship heading the direction it needs to head.
And I'm assuming your 400,000 number, 1-to-1, includes what we already have purchased with home and schools and with,
Of course.
okay.
Now, is that,
Kind of take an inventory of
We-
what would be
Special
left.
ed has iPads. We'd either look at repurposing some of them, they're Gen 2s, we're repurposing them or sell them and purchase. Yes, that's why, there's a lot more time that's went into this than what people could imagine that goes into it. And that's why I'm kind of cautious on that dollar amount, right? Of heading from this plan and then having to shift gears. It's
How much interest are we paying in for you?
Apple has a financing program and it was pretty minimal. I don't know what and all we've talked about is budgetary. We haven't talked actual, bid or state contract request. We've only talked budgetary and it was very minimal. I can't even remember what their percentage was. It looked hardly nothing. It didn't look like much.
Like 1 or 2%?
Yeah.
I think? Okay.
How many iPads are in the district now?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I think it's around 200 and some. 220 is what I want to say, but I'll have to get back to you on that exact number.
So what's being recommended for the high school?
A Windows device.
What Windows device?
A Windows device. That's where we're at with it. It's a Windows device.
and I think that's a really good question, though, but you really can't get to that level yet. They kind of know their platform they want, but they can't get to that level without a dollar number.
But see, I disagree,
Well-
because every lease we've done before, the last step of the process was the plan. And it was the entire plan presented, we voted on the entire plan with numbers. You can't get an exact number until you send out an RFP, but if we're buying off the state contract, we absolutely can. And so you can come up with a very close approximation that we know it won't be more than this, because all of those items are available on the contract. So we can have that information, subject to maybe getting it cheaper if we bid it, it comes in under.
Even with the Windows device?
When we
we're
say
buying
with the
off state
Windows,
contract?
here's the problem with, you guys are dragging me into it, and I'll go with right now. At the high school, we're faced with the dilemma. We have kind of some higher end labs out at the high school with the AutoCAD and graphics design and some of those. Do you get a spec a machine out for students that is robust and that can be used within any of those classes? Journalism, or do you try to do this lower-end machine with these labs over here? So we're trying to figure out what that cost difference is. That's why I say we don't know that answer right now. But besides the platform, we're doing the cost analyzing on, is it more effective to buy a higher-end machine and get the more time out of it, possibly, or buying lower-end machines like we've done in the past.
Okay, so
And-
to me, that seems like a question where you'd have to be very specific about what dollars you're needing. So have you actually crunched the numbers on those two scenarios?
It's not necessarily that there's a pretty good price difference between an i5 and a Celeron processor. So you're looking at a Celeron processor for everybody, and then labs with i3, i5 processors that meet these minimum requirements, or you're looking at more of something across the board. When you're talking 750, 800 of them, I think we'll see probably some better pricing by getting quotes and
But-
helping us.
Okay, so you just described two different scenarios there. What I'm asking is, have you priced out scenario A and scenario B, knowing that that would still, coupled with the iPads?
Yes, but we
through 8?
I haven't had a chance the technology committee's Wednesday. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and go over that with Marty and those teachers in those labs either.
But
That's
I'm
why I said
saying,
that device.
do you know that's going to meet that $400,000
Yeah,
cap?
I feel confident it will.
You do, even if it's scenario A versus
I
scenario
think
B?
A or B will work.
Really?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, did I giggle? Okay.
I feel, that's why I say it, it's not, when I say the 400 is gonna be close, it's gonna be close. I mean, it's not, but that's why I'm making sure that we're okay with that, if that's what we're moving forward with, then
Are we going to have money for professional development in that?
it's in there as well.
It's in there?
What does that piece look, I mean, that's the question I've got, is one of the things we're told is that we can't do this without the professional development. We've expressed, I think this board as a whole over the last couple of years at least, that we want to see additional staff development. I don't know what form that's going to take. I don't know what the cost of that is. Is it one person per building? Is it one person per district? And that's probably not your answer to be fielding or question to be fielding. But that's, are we going to take that, is that coming out of the general fund? Is that coming out of capital outlay? What's the cost of that?
We're budgeting it into this technology purchase. I don't know what fund that technically comes out of, or I don't know any of that. We're budgeting that into the
So
into
the
the cost.
400,000 is not just hardware?
No, hardware, software to manage. And that's why I say, I think it'd be great if we're comfortable with this, then to kind of roll out the plan and then have this conversation again. But I think we have to kind of figure out where we're at to want to have that next conversation, because if it's not 400, I'm not going to say a number, but if it's not 400, then that plan changes significantly, possibly. So that's.
And when do you need an answer by?
We're kind of running against the wire on getting them.
Oh, we're against the wire now. We can't shove this off on the new board.
I sure.
I hate to be making a decision that they gotta live with for 4 years. And when they see me at the grocery store, they say, "You did that, Marty. We seen you do it."
I'll stick up for you.
Is that how they talk, Marty?
At
the group?
And they say they're gonna bring a rope.
Unfortunately, it's gonna have to be an April, May type decision before, so we could get them in and ready by August.
All righty.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so when I look at capital budget, IT equipment and upgrades, I'm looking at fiscal year 16. We got 62,000. We got 171,000 in district software, 25,000 Microsoft licensing. So just those three. Does any of that go away with this plan, or you want to leave all that in those budget line items?
That
as-
software's gonna go up and down as we assess our needs every year, right? We're looking at a different student management software right now that could eliminate some of that and combine it into a lesser bill.
$20,000 lesser or $5,000 lesser? Just, I'm wondering how much money we've got sitting in these other categories.
Could be between 5 and 20,000.
All
It's hard to
right.
put a number to it, because I don't know. Like, for an example, Pearson and Blackboard are looking at getting together too, the rumor is, right? So if they end up partnering together, there might be some better things for us in our district for learning management, because we are a Pearson Power School. So I'm saying the options are always going to be there, right? And then we always have to look and, at the end of the year, see what we can live without. See if we're really using that. I mean, we put the pen to the paper last year and we cut $60,000 out of the software budget. Could it be again? We could probably find some more efficiencies in there at the end of the year once we look at what utilization is and what we have. But you have to do that year by year.
Sure. It's just 171,000 in district software is
But that's
nothing
a-
to sneeze at.
It
So,
isn't,
I mean,
but that's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's Alio, it's
Yeah,
Power
that's not
School,
all
it's
curriculum, teacher
it's
base,
everything.
Central law, yeah,
business
it's
system,
everything.
everything.
Microsoft licensing, that's.
Classroom level is small, those things are small.
You've done a lot better debate since you started.
I don't even like the debate. I just want.
Yeah, you've
I'm
come-
just telling you.
you've
I'm
come a
just
long
telling
way.
you guys answers. If you ask a question, I'm going to answer it.
Huh?
Just good with conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
What is it that we need to bring in on Monday?
are people
you gonna have
coming? Are people
numbers
planning
Monday?
on coming?
Well,
Or is it
I
your show
was
Monday?
kind of hoping more we'd be able to decide on a number on Monday more than
Okay.
having anybody come.
So you're wanting us to vote on 400,000 a year,
Mhm.
Monday. That's what you are bringing to this thing.
That's what I am bringing to this conversation.
Brian, I'm going to refine my comment earlier. The high school, you know you're doing one-to-one.
Mhm.
You know the criteria that they need, those teachers need. You can pretty much ballpark a number there. We know we're probably going to do one-to-one, 6 through 8, or 5 through 8, or 3 through 8.
Or
right?
K through 8.
Or K through 8. There's a couple scenarios there. And so really, the ones in play are, as Marty suggested, are the lower level grades. So can you break
Is that what you
those
guys want
down?
to see, a K through? I have no problem putting it together. Just, you guys just got to remember the time that it takes to put it together and then it changes.
200,000 a year, what would that plan look like? If we gave you $300,000 a year, what would that plan look like? We know what 400,000 looks like. I mean, then we're talking the numbers. I mean, I'm just trying to make it easy for you guys, but and maybe that's more difficult, but to me, it seems that, you know, some of these things, even if we said, well, we're going to go 200,000, I still want to see what the outcomes we expect are. You know, is it going to be better test scores? Is it going to be, you know, whatever it is? You know, for instance, you brought up paperless before. What's the plan there? When are we going to have zero paper? Or what's the, you know, how much paper are we going to purchase less next year?
I'm going to start working on that plan right after this one.
Well, you know, but I mean, I think that's all part of, I mean, and I sent it to Dean earlier today, and we talked about it, I meant to get it to him before today, but, you know, the Department of Education put out a whole thing on how to put together a technology plan, and not only a lot of the things we've done thus far, but how do you measure it on the back end? And not just from the board perspective, but how do we measure its effectiveness for teachers, for students? How do the parents feel that its effect is? And it stresses that you don't just use one evaluation tool, because you're not going to get good feedback, but you've got to look at 2 or 3 different tools to evaluate each set goal that we're trying to accomplish. And, you know, I just, I mean, for me, those are the big things. And we've been doing it for 10 years. This is something we've been talking about. The only person in the 10 years we've had technology, there's 2 actually, and I feel like one was Jerry Moran's daughter, as a junior in high school, came and did a presentation with one of her classmates, and that was their project. That's the only thing we've had to evaluate and look at the effects of technology in our district. We're told it helps, but I mean, to me, I'd like to see an effective tool that we set out, and here's how it's going to be. If it's better grades, what's the difference? You know, Josh brought up the accelerated reading, and, you know, we're going to expect a higher score there. If it's 2 points or 5 points or whatever it is, that's the type of things that, you know, and then also, I mean, I think Shanna brought up some things that, you know, you're going to evaluate, talk to teachers, you know, and I know that some of those weren't, you're going to ask them, you go to an in-service, are you going to use this? But that's not, you know, the question would be, you know, the easy answer, everybody knows, well, yeah, I'm supposed to say I'm going to use it. The reality is did they use it? Is it being implemented? And, you know, for these laptops or iPads, we're going to buy one-to-one for state testing. only, or are they, I mean, can we
There's
justify?
there's other reasons for
I know,
it, yeah.
I know, but can we justify that we have one-to-one all day, every day? I mean, are they gonna be that integral in the part of the student's life that we can show that they're being used?
Oh, man,
I just wanted, when you talk about the state assessments, that's just such a fraction, a little fraction. We were talking at the interview today, we are spending so much time right now on the assessments that the state is requiring. It's the day-to-day. We've been in school over 100 and some days of school. We need that technology to support the teachers in August, and September, and October, and November, and December, and January to get them ready for the state testing. The STAR test, you say, how can we evaluate? We give the STAR test 3 times a year. We give the state assessments. We started giving state assessments 2 weeks ago. We will continue until the 2nd week of May. But I wish you wouldn't focus in on the state assessments. It's that August, September, all of those days that are so valuable for teachers to work one-on-one, the kids work on one-on-one. And when you look at a 6th grader or a 3rd grader, I can't see a teacher saying, wait 15 minutes and you will get your time with the laptop if we only have so many in a classroom. We only have 41 minutes in a class. You can't wait 10 or 12 minutes to get your turn on the laptop, or you're not being good with the kids to where they can advance and succeed. So, and one other thing is I was listening to Brian. Brian and the tech committee have been so good about listening to the teachers. Our teachers have had increased numbers this year. I've got lots and lots of classes, over 30 kids, and they have spent a large amount of time studying the iPads, trying new things, and really doubling their load. And they're telling Brian, they're telling me, they're telling Shannon, we need these. I really hope you don't say, we need them to come now and plead. They have told us to tell you that we need it. I'd hate for you to say, no, you got to come and beg for them. Because they have told us why we need them.
And I think, Craig, I mean, nobody's telling anybody they need to come beg. I think what we're saying is if they're that needed, put it in black and white. Show us the information that shows why we need them. Not just that, trust us, we say we need them.
They are professionals, and they have tried a lot of different things, and they've come and brought that information to Brian and talked with Brian, and a lot of it is just observable. You cannot have black and white numbers on a lot of different things. But as we move forward, and we're seeing that lower group, when they're working with a newer technology, is may be able to get more focused in. So, I don't know, I just didn't want Brian to, I wanted to help out that.
Want to be a friend up here.
That's why you're more confident.
But no, I am supporting the teachers because they have done, I kept hearing people say, have you done your due diligence on why do you need those? And our teachers say, yes, because we've done this, we've told the principal, we've told the tech committee, now they have told you guys. I don't want them to have to come back and say, now prove it.
Well, I think.
They are professionals.
Yeah, but I think maybe I missed a step, but I haven't heard that piece saying they needed it. Because this is the first time I'm hearing that you're asking and they're saying they need one-to-one K through 12. Tonight's the first time I've heard that statement. Okay, I knew where we were headed. We've talked about our technology plan, but tonight was the first time I heard that statement.
No, that's fair. I mean, that's the first time we're ready to make that statement.
Okay, so what I would look for is if you're asking for $400,000 for what you think you need, which is that, give us the detail behind that. What were the statements coming in from the surveys, that sort of thing that got you to that point? What are the flaws with not doing it? So, you mentioned downtime in a class of 47 minutes, if we don't do one-to-one 6 through 8. Is that necessarily the same story in the K through 5? I mean, it seems like that's different, so we just need to hear those
They all
type of
plead a
things.
different story,
It
right?
sounds
And
like you've
that's-
gone over all that. I need some of that detail before I'm comfortable saying, let's go at this level.
How do we bring that to you now? I mean, I think that's what everybody is hearing, the same thing there. How do we, what do you want to see?
You want to hear that from administration, or do you want to hear that from teachers, or do you want to hear that from, who do you want to hear it
Well,
from?
is it coming from your subcommittee? Is it coming from the teachers? I mean,
The subcommittee is teachers.
okay.
But, I mean, I assume if you guys did a survey, and I'm just using some of the examples you brought up, if I were going to present this, I'd go back through and say, okay, here's how we sold it to the tech committee. We had these surveys, okay? Here's a copy of the surveys. We put a presentation together that here's a packet of information that supports everything we say. You know, I mean, I mean, if I go to court and put on a case, I don't just say, well, trust me, that's how it is. You've got to give evidence. You've got to show it. And I know that we should be trusting, but, I mean, we're making a big decision here. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, nobody's going to say, you know, you guys, I mean, the board might ask Dean about it, but the voters are the ones that are going to come to us and say, how in the heck did you guys sit up there and not ask these questions and not find out the answers, and we made this huge mistake?
But isn't that on the final plan? That's on, because whether you put together a great heartfelt presentation, that does not change how much we can afford.
But it does change whether or not we even need it.
But we're not approving anything by setting a budget for them to work within and give us a full 100% comprehensive detailed plan that outlines everything that we want to know. This is just setting a dollar value in which they can put everything together within that to answer every single question we have. But if somebody gets up and gives a bad presentation, I don't feel it, I'm not going to automatically say, well, I'm only going to spend $200,000. I want to know what we're comfortable with to spend in general. If everything is perfectly answered, well detailed, all T's, I's, everything crossed and dotted, what is our maximum willingness to invest into this plan? Then bring it all to us. And then if we don't like some things, we're not comfortable with some things, blah, blah, but we can start putting that plan in its place from a board perspective. I don't know why we'll give us a $200,000 plan, a $300,000 plan, a $400,000 plan. How much can we afford?
Well,
Because I'm not going to spend more than we can afford.
But if he's ready to send out an RFP, we're at that point, aren't we?
Well, he said by April, May.
Well, I mean, we still have to create it, right?
Okay.
We have to create it, so it'd be a couple weeks out before we'd send out an RFP, but we have to still create that.
But I kind of feel like that's the point we're at.
So that's what I'm asking. What do we need Monday and then the next work session and?
Well, the concern for me about going with 400,000, it just seems to me like, instead of just saying, here's the plan we want, here's how much it's going to cost, here's all the details of the plan, what you're going to get, we don't want to give you that yet. We want to give you 400,000, or only ask you for a budget, and then if we say, yes, go with 400,000, then it comes back with a plan, we're not happy with it, then we get hit over the head that, well, you already said 400,000 is the budget, so you got to trust us. And I'm not saying you're saying that, Brian, but I think that's the concern I've got.
No, but I mean, you put the shoe on the other foot, right? We're going off a budget that we think is going to be approved, and if we put together a plan and put the time and effort into it, it gets torn apart in 15 minutes and we're back to square one, right? I'm just trying to make the most efficient use of everybody's time. And the most efficient use by everybody's time is by coming together and figuring out what we're trying to achieve here.
So a vote Monday night, whether you have it or not, would help facilitate that. So we might as well just put it on the agenda and see if it passes. If it doesn't, then we can go to Plan B.
I like that thinking.
But what is it though that, I mean, you want to hear from the committees? That's
I don't.
Okay.
I've heard from, the principals are here and Brian's here and Shannon and Mark. You know, that's who, we've put those guys to work to find that out for us.
I guess I need a little more, guys, I'm sorry. And I'm not asking to beg and plead, but one-to-one at each of the levels, K through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, is expensive. When we don't have a lot of money to do much else. I mean, we're in here constantly talking about this $1,000 versus this $1,500 versus this $5,000, trying to save every buck we can. So I am a little uncomfortable with loosely throwing around a $400,000 number. So yes, I need a case built for why that's justified. What, and I guess I would expect to hear, I understand that justification is different at each of those levels. It's different needs, it's different kids at different levels. But maybe it is hearing from the principals about why you think it's needed one-to-one at each of these levels. Are you ready to do that now?
Well, I'll do.
I mean, sure.
Kind of to follow up on what I was saying, time is the key commodity at schools. We have 170-some days, we have 6 hours, 6.5 hours or whatever, close to that. And when we're doing a project or working with something, again, we need the availability for every kid to be working on it, not saying, okay, it's your turn, no, it's your turn, and pass them around with that, whether it's working a math problem or whether it's in the science and they're working through the different formulas with that. So, time is the biggest stressor on teachers, principals, kids, because if they don't get it done in school, then they don't have, if we don't send the iPads home, then they don't have that tool to take home. So it's not like, work on as much you can, even though you didn't have the technology here to do it tonight. They can't do it there, a lot of our kids, because they won't have that technology if we check them out during the day, collect them at the end of the day, whatever our plan's going to be. So, I sound, I don't know how I sound, but I am wanting our kids to use their full amount of time at school, not being waiting on a tool.
What do you have today? Do we have one-to-one laptops in each of the rooms at the middle school today?
We are lucky right now with our 8-year-old Dells if we have a third of the class working at any time. We may have 25 sitting over on that shelf, but only the batteries are dead or the trust issues, and we're calling Brian and different things. And so we're just trying to get them to work.
Okay.
We probably average what, Brian, I'd hate to say how many
a lot of
tickets
tickets
a day.
A lot of tickets. But instead of taking this deep dive into why today, right?
Well, no, that was good. I thought that was helpful.
Right. Brian?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're helping your case, don't say
No,
that.
I know. I just look at the time and we're at 8 o'clock, and
I know.
these guys over here is going to be 8:15, so I've already lost. So I was trying to really kind of get my over-under. But I'm saying we can put it together and we can come back and we can do.
What we're asking?
We can.
Well, I have a couple of questions for Craig, and I'll put him on the hot spot. I don't care who.
Well, if you guys want to talk to them on it, I'd like to take a seat because I've been standing there.
If they're willing to visit
Do you need water,
tonight,
Brian?
I'd say we just hear it out tonight, if they're willing to. I mean, Mr. Straub stood up, Mrs. Damel's standing up, Mr. Pallister here, and Mr. Mayor, you're in the back. I mean, they're willing to speak it.
My question is, though, I understand where you're talking about where you've got one class, it's difficult to tell these 3 kids they can't use it while the others can, or however many it is, but what's always been troubling for me, even at the high school level, is we say we need one-to-one for all these kids, but, are we using it, is every kid in every class using it?
No.
That's the answer, and so the question becomes is, if that's not the case, could we then figure out a system in which we had mobile carts in which we coordinated the usage of these to where we didn't have to have one-to-one, but they were sufficient that we could use them? And then what is the cost of that versus the one-to-one? Maybe it's just as much, and so we're better off one-to-one. Maybe it's $20,000 a last year, or,
And-
and that's the question.
I don't know the precise, that's why I rely on Brian on a lot of the numbers and on that, but I know when I go into a room and they're using the new technology a lot of times, or they're using their smartphones and different things, it may be 10 minutes here at the beginning of this hour, okay, because at middle school they have to chunk up everything, because the focus, it may be what research says 12 minutes, so you work on this with the iPads and work on this, then you pull the book out, then you lecture for 12, but then you don't want to, oh, we got to go find some more because you're coming back to use the laptops at the end of that hour. So, no, they're not being used the whole periods on every subject, but to give the teachers what they need, they need to be available. No matter whether it's at the beginning of the hour for 10 minutes, at the end of the hour for 8 minutes, or whatever that direction. And that is one of our biggest things that I've talked about, time and the stress amount. Because what we have found with the iPads in our infrastructure, we don't have to wait. They get on the iPads, it's there. Not like the Dells that were 8 years old and that we're spending 12 to 14 minutes getting them up, getting them going, and logging in. So time and stress are my big two right now.
And in support of that, when Mark talks about this is a tool, and would we expect these teachers to go check out a cart of textbooks? We wouldn't. So if we look at it as a tool, granted it's a more expensive tool than a textbook, but I see that argument. I also have a sixth grader this year, and I hear about those struggles when they didn't get a test done in that 43 minutes, 47 minutes, you know, and it's a simple chapter test is taking 2 days to finish, and they have to wait for a block day. So I understand that time issue.
And like you said, the teachers I just feel for them because they come to me just about monthly at our meetings and different things. How can we get more time to teach? We probably won't get much more time to teach, but we got to be smarter on how we teach with that.
We could extend the contract day.
Yeah,
We would have more time to teach.
yeah, and I think that's a
can
good
find that
idea.
answer for you.
I think it's a good idea.
I'll take the second stressor for the teachers is being able to
Shannon, can you
teach-
go up to the mic?
Is being able to teach the curriculum. And with the changing standards and moving to college and career ready and the Rose standards, there's a lot of technology embedded in each and every one of those, starting as early as kindergarten. And right now, we're struggling to take the research performance task for the social studies at 6th and 8th grade because we don't have a machine that will stay charged. And we have 14, don't listen to this, Rusty, but we have chargers all over and power strips violating all kinds of codes because we don't have the machines that can stay charged for our students to take the assessment, which is really, that's really difficult when you're having to unplug this and plug that in. That's not a good learning environment. Bottom line, our teachers aren't able to teach students how to go and do research because they don't have a machine that's always readily available. And if our district is going to support the standards and have our teachers, have our students required to learn that information, then we need to put a tool in their hand that's going to allow them to be able to do that. And right now, we're really struggling. And that starts clear down in kindergarten. I know you've seen the standards and where all of that goes. And I think as far as the subcommittee information that we have gathered and presented, each one of those levels talks about that in each one of the presentations that we had put together to present to the technology committee. And if we need to dissect that, Greg, I keep hearing you say, we need to see the results, we need to see results. Well, we can't give you those results yet. We have a vision of where we want to go and the results that we want to get you, but right now we can't get you those because we don't have a machine that can do that for us.
Well, and just so we're clear, I don't disagree with that, but what I want to see is just a plan that says, here's the results we expect to get if we get whatever the plan is, and here's how we're going to measure those. So at a year, we come back a year from now, and you guys present, or Brian, or whoever, or Dean, somebody presents to us and says, here's what we said we were going to do, here's where we're at, and we may not hit those. It may be something that we were way off because the machines didn't get implemented quick enough, or the training didn't happen, or just didn't take. There's all kinds of reasons it may not, but it's an evolving process. So then, when you measure that after a year, you say, well, here's what we learned over that year. Here's why it didn't work, and here's what we're going to do different next year to make sure it's working. That way, for me, I can justify then the process.
Sure, and we could justify if we had a dollar amount of what we can work with. And I think speaking as a technology committee member, it's difficult for us to lay all of that out because a lot of us on that committee have done that, and then we present that, and then it's tore up and it's slashed and we have to go back. In the last lease, we had to do that 3 different times and completely redo every RFP that was ready to go out. So I think that's where Brian is coming from in the essence of time and effort on everybody's part, that if we kind of had a solid figure that we were working with, then we can get you all of those details. But until we know what that's going to look like at different levels, I would hate to say, well, we can do this, this, and this in K2 if we were 1-to-1, but we're not 1-to-1 and we're carts, and so now we have it a fifth of the time instead of all of the time available to us. It's hard to set those growth measures in place when we don't know what we're going to be working with. So I think that is kind of where our struggle as the technology committee is coming from on that standpoint. It's not that we don't want to give you those results or tell you what we're going to measure, but if we don't know what devices we're going to have in the hands of each of the students at all grade levels, we don't know what we can produce yet. Because having them available all of the time, 1-to-1, versus a fifth of the time if we have a cart, K2, K5, whatever it may be, that's going to produce possibly different results depending on what we're measuring. And if we're looking at student growth, that's going to be, if we're talking about research, we're going to need those things available. The more they're available, the more our teachers are going to use it, the better our students will be at it. So that will should directly result in higher growth measures.
So let's just, I can appreciate what you're saying. And so if we're here saying we can't give a number until we know some of those things, and you're saying, well, we can't tell you those things until we get a number, we're kind of a chicken and egg thing here. And so as Board Member Rankins pointed out to me, I shouldn't be negative. I should say, okay, well, where's the solution? And I don't know where the solution is here, but isn't that the question of how do we get some of what we need and you guys get the ability to, as the committee, and I sat on that previous committee with you, and so I understand what you were dealing with, but it's, that's kind of the, what's been presented is a 1-to-1 plan, and so, obviously if we change, if the budget was cut in half or a fourth that was cut off or whatever, that your measurements are going to be different. It's just inevitable, and how so, I don't think you can just say, well, it'll be 25% different. But I would think you'd have to look at it that way. But so I don't want to make you guys go through all that effort, but I don't know. I just don't know how we get to the point. I don't want to just approve and say, well, here's 400,000, and we'll trust we're going to get a plan that works, and if not, we'll fight about that later. And I just, I think we've given some good ideas about where we're at and some of the information we want. Maybe you guys don't have enough, and if you don't, I'd be more than happy to try and give you more, but I think mine's been fairly consistent throughout. I would be very happy with a plan over a staggered process that says we're going to implement it maybe at a grade level, maybe at a building level. If the high school machines are 4 years old and theirs can last another couple of years, then maybe they're the last ones to get the upgrade. I know, Marty, you're not very happy with that, but if it's,
We'll make,
but
if you don't mind.
somehow then you can start implementing, and without doing the big leap for 1.6, maybe you go in for 400,000 the first year, and if next year the state cuts us, we can then scale that back in each year after that, or increase it if we get more.
My concern is less about whether we could or couldn't do that, Greg, as much as it is Brian's capability and his tech's capability to keep those machines up and running for us to do so. We would certainly be, and we've talked about the extremes of 1-to-1 with the exact machine we like, and somewhere and 2 or 3 levels in between, and then to do nothing. And we talk seriously about doing nothing because of just the reasons that you folks are up against, and we understand that. And we understand that could be the solution. But along with that, we've got to develop a plan on how do we keep those machines up and running for next year, because right now it's very difficult for his folks to. And they work very hard, they do a good job. It's no offense to them. It's just they're just tired machines, and we bought the best we could at the time we bought them. But it's so cool to see the cost of technology go down. We're talking about $400,000 over 4 years, whereas before we were talking basically about taking care of the high school for $400,000 a year. It's just amazing. The size of the hard drive, we're less interested in having storage space for our teachers or me or Brian or anybody else in the machine. Forget that. Let's just, saving in the cloud is just so so much more efficient. But there are ways that we really are trying to take costs out of these machines and still meet the needs of our kids and our staff. And bottom line is, storage in the cloud is where everybody's at. You folks are probably there in your business anyway.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I agree. I think, I'm sure with Brian's staff, I'm sure it's challenging in a lot of these situations. And I mean, the district at a, or at a board level, even before, I was on here, I mean, I think we as a board got us to the situation we are today, where we probably should have been doing more upkeep on machines over the years and not waiting until, but at the time, they were 4-year leases or whatever the case may be. I mean, I'd love to see us get into something where every third year we're replacing X amount of machines or whatever and getting it some sort of on a rotation. I don't know that that's the direct answer, but that's the reason you see businesses in places like that do that, so you don't have this huge expense at one given time.
I understand.
So I understand in this, but what's frustrating to me though is, and I understand at the end of the day, if you ask everybody wants one-to-one, because everybody wants a machine and it's going to be the easiest way to do it. But looking out there at tons of other districts across the U.S. and that, it doesn't happen everywhere because the funding is not there. And yet these districts find a way to make it work with not having one-to-one. It's maybe not the optimal way to do things, but in some situations you have to look at other, I guess that's my question, is I just like to see that we have looked into other things. And I realize at the end of the day it comes down to a dollar figure and everything else, but I just feel like we've made up our mind that it's one-to-one and that's what we're doing and we're going to push forward with it. And I
think the perception is we can fit one-to-one with the current budget amount that we have set for doing, right? We're just asking if that's going to stay. Because it's not going to stay, we kind of need to know now.
Yeah, we wish we knew too.
Well, I agree, right? I know.
We
don't want to be in my seat, I don't want to be in your seat.
We felt it was important to look at different formats to the platform. We looked at 4 or 5 different devices, just received one right before spring break, so we can't really talk to device. But we didn't look at laptops with huge hard drives and huge memory. We really have narrowed it down to 2 or 3 machines that we think could meet our needs that are probably about half the cost of what the machines that our kids have now.
And Marty, on that question, I guess that's one of the other questions which I was going to bring up at the technology committee, which I can still ask. I mean, how did we go across? I mean, to go through, you guys said you looked at several of these machines. Did we go through and get a lot of those in so everybody could do hands-on with them and really truly see if they're going to meet our needs? Or did we look at 1 or 2 of them and just say, yeah, we really don't like the way this one works?
We brought in Nova Yoga machine. We brought in...
How many of those did we bring in?
We brought in 1 because they were on quick turn, they were hard, and so we rotated them for about a month.
But I guess that's my question, and I see what you're saying as far as, but can we truly say we honestly got a good feel for that machine, getting 1 machine
Well,
in the district?
I made sure that those machines got in the hands of the people that push them the most.
What type of device? Was it an iPad or
They're
a tablet?
tablets.
Access, Lenovo?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Tablets.
Tablets.
They weren't, they're 2-in-1, they're called a lot of different things as we've learned this, but they're tablets.
Yeah, it's really they're looking at more for the form of it rather than the functionality of it, right? They wanted to see what the 2-in-1 was, how it worked. They had the iPad, right?
We used the iPad the longest period of time with 30-plus teachers in our school. And then...
But that's easy to do because all the teachers have one, though. That's all I'm saying. It's easy to test the iPad because all the teachers have one in their hand.
Well, and I think it would only be a fair question. I would expect, and I kept telling Lance is going to ask, we better be prepared to say we looked at other different platforms and other different formats. I think it was important. We learned a lot, too. You don't know what... If you go to the grocery store and only get Cheerios every time, you never know what Rice Krispies might taste like. Well, we were looking at, you look at different options, and that was our responsibility, to be good consumers. And we feel like we did our due diligence, but again, I just received one, I think that Thursday or Friday before spring break. It just had come out, and second, third generation, so it's not a first generation, which we really want to stay away from. But we've learned a lot along the way. But as I said, nothing is one of the options we've talked about. But I have to say again, can we keep the machines up and running? That is a concern.
And I definitely think that's obviously something to, that everybody's got to take into consideration. But that's been my question, though, and that's the reason, when we had the work session at Wilson and the other stuff that I had brought up, if we were going to go through, it's very easy to go through. Obviously, the more devices we have in everybody's hands, the better feel that we can get in the true, how they're truly going to help us. If just by going through on other platforms, whether it's Android, whether it's Windows or whatever, and we get one how is that a fair comparison, saying we get iPads?
Can I answer? One reason why we did the number of apples, because we knew that the students and the teachers, the staff in the different elementary buildings knew that they really were committed to the iPad. They had enough experience through many of those devices that have been purchased, maybe through Home and School or stuff. They had been in the hands of those teachers. We didn't want those to be wasted if the middle school and or the high school didn't go that way. And Brian does plan to repurpose those.
Sure.
So again, when we bring in 1 or 2 computers, actually we did bring in, I misspoke earlier, the Lenovo? But one of them we brought in, we brought in 10, and we had those for about 3 weeks, Lance. And then we brought 2 other devices in. I only had 1 of those. But again, I made sure that those got in the hands of the teachers that really push the machines the most and use them most with the kids. They actually, one of the classrooms I was doing a walkthrough in, it was being handed around. It was an emerging technologies class, and the kids were basically doing a critique of the machine and giving feedback to the teachers too. Very, very helpful feedback, actually.
And I think
our
that's great that
students
they did that.
absolutely are tuned into this decision. They are very interested and have given very good feedback to us, to the teachers, and then back to the tech.
And did we
It's been
do
very, very
that at all
helpful.
levels?
They really care. I mean, they really care about this decision.
Did we do that at all levels where we got the, 10 of one device or whatever and passed it around to the teachers? And
Different subcommittees were responsible for making that recommendation.
well, I understand that, but did they go? That's I guess my concern here is
We can't afford a laptop everywhere, right?
Sure.
I mean, if we're gonna get done a device, I guess if you have a recommendation for a device.
No, I'm not saying, I'm just.
We'll be more than happy to look at it, right?
Right.
That's why this is really going in a direction I don't want it to head in right now.
Sure, and that's why I said we can ask more of that at the
If we need
technology
to have a
committee.
conversation about testing devices and what we're gonna do, I think we should have that later on.
Let me ask that question about devices while we're on it, because an item, and decide that's what you're going to have, it kind of runs contrary to some of the bidding laws in the state of Kansas. Now, I'm not saying that we're doing anything illegal if we do that, but, one of the things we've done historically, and I think the mistake that happened last time was, when you do send out an RFP, you've got to select the lowest bidder, and the HPs were the lowest bid, and what was ultimately found out was the case was no good on them, or that was one of the problems. Well, that goes back to the tech committee or you, that we didn't write a good enough spec for what the case needed to have, so it met the rigors of what we were going to subject it to. But we did, on the first lease we did, it was with Apple. They flew everybody out to Henrico, Virginia. They flew 2 groups of people from this district, about 40 people on free trips, and toured the facility, and they told us, no, there was only 1 kid in the entire time they were there that didn't have one that worked, and that kid needed their iPad or their laptop so much, they kept using it even though the key was missing, and then we found out our failure rate was about 10%, or 8 to 10%, somewhere in that range. And so part of the problem when you do this is if we roll it all out at once and we find out, oops, we were wrong, the screen costs, when these drop, they break easily. And the case we get may not be well enough to protect it, or kids take it out and then it gets broken anyway, or whatever the case may be, or situation, I should say. But those are some of the issues that I think we have. But what we did with those apples is we went and said, well, the Apple doesn't have to have the same specs as the rest of the machines. They have to have a smaller hard drive. They have to have less memory. And the argument was, well, they have faster processors and they're more efficient users of it. Well, really, the reason I suspect, and I think, is that we wanted apples, and that's the only way Apple could be competitive. I mean, they're great devices, don't get me wrong. I like the Apple products I have, but they're more expensive than the others, and that's why a lot of people buy the others, because they're cheaper. And that's what concerns me, is we've talked about platforms, or started to, and been told we can't talk about platforms. And I think we're getting told we don't want to talk about platforms, because then you do get into an argument that, but if the apps that are out there are available for virtually any platform, you've got 3. You've got a Windows platform, Android, and the Apple platform. And if they're available for all of them, shouldn't we be bidding these out, taking into consideration cases and things like that, and specifications we want?
Yes, but the state assessment test doesn't certify an Android device. So I mean, that's the first problem right there, right? So in my opinion, you can't look at Android because you can't even use it for one of the biggest test in.
Let me ask, how are other districts able to get around that, though? Because I know there's the second or third largest district in the U.S., down in Texas, uses Android devices. How do they get around that if that's the
They
case?
don't have Kansas State assessment testing.
Every state writes their own assessment, their own programs.
Kansas supports Chromebooks, Windows, and Apple. I mean, that's what it is.
So it works on a Chromebook, but it doesn't work on Android?
That's,
I mean, they're both Android
Well,
based.
and they may have labs or something that they work through, that's hard to speak to their assessment process. Part of the other piece of iPad, I know we're talking about apps and if they're available, it is a media rich. When we talk about students in that digital learning plan becoming creators versus consumers, there are cameras, there are ways for them to create media projects, which is part of our digital learning plan. So it's not just, I know we talked earlier, Brian said this, we aren't going to focus on apps, we're going to focus on the tools of the machine that can be used to help meet those learning outcomes.
And I think if a camera is needed, then the question is it must have a camera, it must be X megapixel or whatever it is that set out the specs, design the specs, and let them bid.
Well, and I just wanted to address, I don't feel like we are dodging this measuring. I mean, no one in our administrative team, teachers, we want to be held accountable. We know this is a huge investment, and we outlined some measures specifically. Now, whether you like them or have other suggestions, we're open to those. But you know, a lot, and I know you've done some research, technology is the tool. It's not the learning objective and outcome. So that's the part that's really hard to say. We're going to measure, and technology is solely the reason that we get to this point. It is a tool, just like the textbooks, other things that we use. I know that, again, you may not agree with that, but I wanted to make sure that we understood that. Now, the part of technology that is in our plan as well are digital literacy outcomes. There's definitely ways that we can say by second grade, students need to know how to be literate in digital. And that's part of the plan, and maybe I just failed in showing you how that would look specifically. But again, that is going to be rolled out depending on what it looks like at the classroom level as well. So I feel very comfortable with those outcomes. The other outcomes that we'll be able to measure are the evidence of students learning. They're going to look different when they have technology at their fingertips, because again, they're going to be creating more projects. You shared just a few that you've seen over the 10 years. Hopefully we can bring one every month and share a student project that's happening. You know, today we interviewed assistant principals, and technology was one of the questions, and to me, not having technology can't be an option for our students. Our students deserve this. And I feel like as a district, we followed the process, and so we're at this step, which we knew would come to this point. So that's why we need to come together and continue moving forward and finding the right solution and the right fit, dollar-wise included. But the whole idea, I guess the one-to-one, what I heard teachers say is, it's not just an add-on technology. We're not going to stop and do technology now, and when you have a part and you have to schedule it, that's how it feels. Whereas it needs to be integrated, like at the middle school. There's no paper agendas anymore. We all keep our calendars and what our to-do list here. That's going to be on the iPad. It's just going to be a seamless part of our everyday instructional day. So those are just some comments. I thank the principals. They've done a great job because we've talked a lot. I don't know if Elaine had anything to add.
I know you've asked a lot tonight about how are the kids going to use it? Why do you need one-to-one? At Lincoln, we don't have one-to-one with iPads in any of our classrooms. You know, in our 3rd through 5th grade, we have laptops, which are one-to-one, and they are used every day. Not all day, but every day they're used for different projects. I was in a classroom, though, when we got our 10 iPads at our home and school purchase for our teachers to try out and to use. So I had a teacher who asked the other teachers, can I borrow your iPad? I need all 10 of them at the same time so that my kids can work in groups of 2 or 3. Because we're going to do a writing project. And so, you know, I observed in the classroom when she had taught writing previously where the kids were writing it out or doing it on their laptops. But with the iPads, the things that they could do with their writing was just unbelievable, and the excitement level in the classroom. But to get those 10 iPads, she had to schedule around 10 other people. She brought her iPad from home so that she had another one. So we had 11 iPads in the classroom, kids in groups of 2 to 3. And the excitement level was amazing, but everybody wanted to use that iPad. They had to take turns on who got to type, who got to record the animated sounds, who could, they had to research to add some clips into their story. But, not everybody could do it at the same time. So you think about the learning that the other two kids who were working in that group of 3, that kid who was working on it and the excitement and the other kids giving them ideas, they couldn't type fast enough to put it in there. But those other 2 didn't have that hands-on activity that they got to do right at that moment. So you lost a lot of the ideas there in that time. So by providing an iPad for each of those kids, that excitement level stays up there, and they accomplish so much more, and the quality of learning is just enhanced with that. And I know at the lower levels, we're talking about minis, not full iPads, isn't that correct? Okay, so, in the kindergarten, you watch kindergarten, and, they have a couple of minis that they've used, but, you just think about how you could do a whole class of those kids working on those minis. But you just lose something, as Craig and everybody else has said, you just lose something when there's only a few who can use them at that same time. And we are scheduling, we have 6 laptops that we share between kindergarten, 6 laptops that we share at 1st grade, and 6 that we share at the 2nd grade. So to schedule them to be in your classroom right when you need them, when you have that teachable moment that you want them, you miss it because you may not have that iPad or that laptop right at that moment when you want to use it to enhance your lesson. So I just, I think there's a lot to be said about having it one-to-one for those kids at all levels. I know we need it 3rd through 5th grade, but I think there are a lot of things that we can do K2 that will also enhance their abilities and their learning.
Yes. Any other elementary teachers out there? Okay. Of course you do. Let me ask it a different way. If it's not 400,000 and it's 200,000, do you know what you'd cut? Do you know what you'd prioritized?
I couldn't prioritize that. The technology committee, administration, I think administration and building principals would have to get together and figure that out. I don't think that's something that the technology committee would recommend. That you got 8 people that are representing, 2,800, 2,900.
No, I know.
I don't think that's a fair question.
Is it a fair question for you, Dean?
Well, yeah, if we need to make
I mean-
this cut, yeah, that's,
I mean, we can call them options, or we can state it that way, but, I mean, this was helpful. I've heard very good cases, things that I hadn't heard before, examples that I hadn't heard before, and that helps. But still, if we can't all come to agreement and agree on 400,000, and it's something less than that, what are our options? What does that world look like?
We would look at the cost of minis compared to full size, where sharing would work, easier, the best. There's all kinds of those things that we would have to look at, but how much of that, until we have some kind of dollar.
How much do you cut until you're cut enough?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I don't have any problem with 400,000 this year. It's 3 years from now that I'm worried about.
And so,
You know,
what
I know we
happens
have
to
the money
this
this year.
plan if we can't get to year 2?
It'll be a good question at the forum tomorrow night for those candidates running. I think I'll be there to ask that, to see how they would go.
Brian, I think for me, one of the questions would be is, if you started with a plan that said at K through 5, just as an example, I'm not saying we'd have to do this, but, and there'd be some inequalities because not every building has 3 sections per grade level, but if you just simply said, we're going to buy a full set for, if the biggest 5th grade class we have in that building is 30 kids, then we'll buy 30 of them, and those 3 teachers share those and have to schedule those. They may decide that it's best to split those into 3 groups. They may decide that it's, and then coordinate the usage of those, but do that over for next year. And then with the plan that 2 years from now, we'll go up that number. And, maybe the middle school only gets half of what they want, but next year they get the other half, or they get, something. Then you're not locked into 4 years, but and then as you implement this, it's going to take a couple of years, you can gradually, so when we have the full package, everybody's using it and we've bought it, and then at the end of the 4 years, the next year, you know, you're automatically going to have to go back and start replacing the other stuff, and so you're never replacing the entire operation at once, which I would think for you guys in the long run will be better. But it's food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could put out probably 5 scenarios like that. I don't know, we've gone all around what the original question was, and if the board's not ready to say that we can give a dollar amount to what we think we want to invest in this and what we can afford over the next several years, then I think we need to do that. We need to sculpt some plans that we would like to see and put that to them. I don't agree with that. I would like to see the best plan with the money that we have to work with, whatever that is. I don't want to sit here and listen to 8 different presentations on 8 different options. But if we're not comfortable saying that we want to see a dollar amount, we want to see a plan for this dollar amount, then I think we should probably better start saying, hey, put these together. Let's see them. And let's spend now through the end of the summer going over all of them and holding off on this until probably the following year and going without for a whole school year. Because what we can afford, to me, does not change based on what device some board member or another board member doesn't like better or worse. What can we afford? What do we think we can afford, I guess, is the better. We heard Dean speak tonight. We're not anticipating any major changes in the capital outlay scenario. We've got buffers already built in to cover all of the questions that were asked previous. If we're not comfortable with 400,000, what number are we comfortable with? And it sounds like tonight we're not comfortable. We don't know. As a general consensus.
I'm comfortable with 400,000 this year.
What's the price break if you split it up amongst 4 years? How many less devices would you probably get? Quite a bit? No idea. If you split this up and we buy 400,000 worth this year, 400,000 worth next year, what's the price break we lose on devices?
Does your buying power go down?
Yeah, does your buying power go down?
Everything I've been basing my current pricing off of is off of, no, just website, good Googling, right?
Okay.
Talking to reps and giving me a ballpark figure. That's what I've been basing my current cost. So I don't have a fixed cost, and I haven't looked at the state contract on the computers. I still need to meet with Marty.
Well, it delays the technology implementation for 4 years. I mean, before somebody would be able to.
One of my fears with that would be, we'll use the high school for an example, having 4 different types of Windows devices, right? 4 different images, 4 different things to keep track of, because you wouldn't be able to buy the same model every year. And then that would become a little bit of an issue for support with the staff that we have. I mean, we're not built for large quantity computer repair, right? We maintain with what we have, but I think that would be that would be the fear at the high school for a Windows device. Same thing with a teacher's type device. I mean, that would be another. But I mean, that's all things that we can get into. I mean, if we have to do it, we have to do it. We have to do it. I think we'll make it work. My biggest thing is just trying not to come to talk to you guys every month for the next 3 months.
Can you get the state contract numbers by Monday or before?
Yeah, we can definitely try. You have some budgetary numbers possibly Monday.
Back to the elementary school. Okay, so let's say we had groups. We had limited amounts of iPads per classroom. You know, part of me pictures it like that big shiny fire truck. I mean, how does that work when you've got 3 or 4 kids wanting to use the same device? Does that become more disruptive, you think? Would it be better to have no iPads for K through 2 or a few in which they could work? Which classroom setting would be better?
It'd be better to few to a room than none at all.
Okay, you don't think it would be...
Move forward from where we are right now.
Okay, wouldn't be more disruptive, wouldn't be more, you wouldn't have that struggle between the kids and,
Just use it more as center-based activities
Okay.
rather than whole group.
okay.
Does
Thank-
that
thank you.
change depending on what grade you're talking about?
Yeah.
K through 2 versus 3 through 5?
Tom, can you come up to the front on the podium for everybody at home? I can hear you fine.
5, it's going to be difficult to not have.
Shannon, you want to come up too? It's not for me, it's for everybody at home.
Because of state assessments. I know we don't want that to be the focus of everything, but it's a huge part. And assessments are going to be changing. We're adding assessments all the time from the state. But so 3 through 5, it's going to be pretty important to have a lot of machines available for them to be able to take those assessments. And part of it's going to come down to a management issue. If you put a few versus none, then it's something that through training and usage will get better, I think, at any level, whether it's K2 or 3-5. But definitely, I support what Tom said. 0 would be obviously worst case scenario, but a few would be helpful, because otherwise if you have 0 in K2, then you're starting at 0 when they hit 3rd grade and are expected to be proficient in testing on a device by the spring semester of their 3rd grade year. And by that point, it might be 3 assessments for 3rd grade by that point instead of just 2. So.
Okay. So therefore, if you're looking at kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, 600 students, and you were buying 200 iPad minis versus 600 iPad minis, the change from that 400,000 a year, you're not really looking at much of a reduction there. I mean, that's not a cost savings area then, really, is it, Brian? I mean, you're not saving $150,000 a year. Yeah. So to go with, to not go 1-to-1 K through 2, it's not.
Repeat that question again, 'cause I think
Well, if you're buying 600 iPad minis, what do we have? 200 kindergartners, 200 first graders, 200 second graders? Just ballparking it?
Ballparking.
So that's 600 students. And if you went to a 1-to-3, you're cutting it back from 600 to 200. And they're minis. It's still not going to be a huge cost savings. And that's not where the majority of the money is going to be tied up in, is in 400 iPad minis.
No, I mean, to give you guys an idea of our student base, which I'm sure you guys have an idea of, but we have 1,400 elementary students, 700 middle school, 700 high school, right? That's probably low, but I'll give you an example of what we've been working off of. Yeah, once you start getting in, you think you can do some major savings by doing X and Y instead of Z, but it's not as much as what you.
Right, and that's what we've heard tonight, is everybody seems to be very comfortable with 3rd grade through 8th grade or 3rd grade through high school, 1-to-1. It's the debating on K through 2. But at the end of the day, you're not looking, it's not like it's going to put a big dent in whatever the number is. That would be the smallest amount of savings seen.
Be a dent, but I don't think it's going to be.
You said $100 a device?
I can get that. I don't, $100 device isn't going to be right, because if you use $200 to 600, that's, I don't feel so much time.
I know.
I'm just being honest. I didn't come in here and
It would be a third of the original budget
For just that little area on the minis. Not an overwhelming number. It's not going to save us
You probably
$60,000
$150,000, I would bet.
over the cost of 4 years.
No, I'm just saying, if you broke it out, if you were just saying, if instead of doing 600, we only did 200, if you figure ballpark at $400 per device.
Well, 200.
I couldn't remember, I thought that was ballpark when he said that. That's the only reason.
But another way to
100?
state this, which is the way it's
100?
happening in my mind, is what you
100 total
want,
for the
what
mini.
you think you need optimally is 1-to-1 K through 12 for $400,000 a year for a total of $1.6 million. Okay.
But that includes staff though, too.
No, I know, I'm simplifying. So, what I really want to know, and what I feel like would help me make that decision, is what could you live with? If that's what you really want and you think you need and you built this case for it, what if we drop down to 300,000 per year or 200,000 per year, what do we lose and what is the impact of that? Do, you know,
And sir, I guess to follow up on that, because, I mean, the other part is, that's one piece of it, but if that were the plan, that we were gonna drop to that number, would it be better to do it over a stepped, 4-year plan, where we don't buy it all at once, but buy it over 2 to 3 years, versus cutting the budget that much? I mean, that's.
yeah, I mean, what, I think that you guys know, and I understand that it's a little more challenging than that because you've had members from each of the K through 5 and then, wish we had an easier way, A, B, and C, the different levels. So I realize that comes down probably to central administration and you to make that case or figure out what that is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, I don't
What,
think that's, I don't
just
think that's
based
fair
on
to
that,
committee
I mean, but who's the biggest need?
themselves, right?
What's the biggest hole right now? Who's in the biggest crisis right now? And I guess that's not a good way to look at it because we've said that we believe technology is needed and we've agreed to this technology plan, so now I'm kind of switching that up a little bit. But, but I mean, that's, as a board member, that's what I need to know to make that decision. I mean, you know, I hear when I hear about the problems at the middle school, I can relate to those, I can understand those, and that sounds like a big problem. So just listening tonight, it sounds like that potentially is where this is needed most. So that's gonna cost us $150,000 or whatever it is if we do that. Then what's the next biggest need? Well, if we don't make a decision on the high school, we realize we've got a cost with that to maintain those machines. And what is that number? What is the do-nothing number? And then is it 3 through 5, because we know we're doing testing and we're having a problem.
The do-nothing number will never be a do-nothing number because there's going to be a support number.
That's what I'm saying. That's that number.
And that's going to be really hard to, and we could give you the pricing based off what we did last year in repairs or this year in repairs. But, I mean, the problem, I get a phone call from HP that we can't get parts for our HPs right now. They're asking us to get.
Okay.
I mean, we're ordering everything we need on our accidental damage protection plan right now because they need to order. We've been forecasting for the last 3 months, so they could have parts ready for us now.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the scary part about the HPs.
Okay.
Is it doable? Yes, but.
That's under warranty? We're having that issue?
Well,
They started having that issue a couple years ago.
They only standardized on 3-year accidental damage, and somehow we got them to do a 4-year, and that 4-year really stretched them pretty thin on parts for this model.
That sounds like that, I mean, I know that that's something we need to deal with, but, I mean, seems like a legal issue almost, but
Well,
they're not
they're-
fulfilling their end of the contract.
Okay, but regardless of that, we're talking about going into year 5 with these, and so that situation's just going to get worse, right?
Well, I feel it compounds it, right? You don't know what it is. It's a magic 8 ball, right?
Okay.
You might get by with, need to buy freshman devices, right? Or half, or, I don't know. But I don't think you're gonna get a very good deal if you're buying devices as needed.
Okay.
Right? And that's the problem with that. I think what I get from you guys, I think I can maybe summarize this up a little bit. We might not be comfortable with 400, we might be comfortable with 400 depending on what we're gonna get for that money. We might be better at 300, but it sounds like maybe we get the number by grade and then we give it to you guys.
So you need us to work on, as building principals,
By
work
level.
on Plan A.
Yeah.
That's
I'm not even opposed to a 2-year plan.
We do it by class.
And not by class. I really think that we're talking about high school, middle school, and potentially at the elementary, a K through 2 versus 3 through 5. I mean, because it sounds like there's some different needs in there,
You really
right?
have to do it by class though, because you have to plan for your 5th graders going to middle school. You've got bigger classes coming through. You can't, that's why when you look at it, you have to look at the growth as well.
Sure.
You can't look at it just for what this year is. So you have to look at what's coming up from 4th grade, 5th grade, what your middle school is going to look like in 3 years. Because we're saying we can get by for 3 years.
Okay.
We're not buying all those devices right now, but
That makes
I'm
sense.
saying you have
No,
to
that
look
makes
at it by
sense.
class.
But do we have classes that are that much bigger?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Across
From the
For
elementary,
next-
everything's going to grow down the next few
Okay,
years.
okay.
Next year will be relatively close at the middle school as to what we are right now, but the next 4 years after that, we'll be gaining 40 to 50 students each year.
Okay.
More, so it's hard to just base it off of the incoming next year's numbers for the middle school. And the middle school is unique because we're the only building that tests every student in multiple subjects.
Okay.
So-
Well,
Cross grade
but
level.
you have a time frame in mind with this technology. You expect these iPads K through 8 to last X number of years. I mean,
I expect them to last until they definitely need to be replaced.
But
Great answer. Great answer.
Pretty decisive. I'll bring you with me tomorrow night.
I mean, realistically, we have I know Mark has several Generation 1 iPads through the special ed department that are still running
working.
strong, still able to run the apps that are needed for those students in those classrooms in particular, and that's 4 years out, as long as we continue to do the updates as the software comes out.
I mean, the only iPad that isn't useful for our needs right now is a version 2, right? I mean, we could get by with version 2 this year if we had all of them. But that's what I'm saying, it'd have to be a needed justification to replace. I mean, it'd have to be replaced because it needs to be replaced, not because it's a new technology.
Was that population growth being calculated in the one? Because if we're going to gain, 40 students a year,
Yeah, there was gonna be some budget for
Well, we've been
that.
holding consistent, like
Yeah.
two and two.
We won't see
but it's
total.
just our bigger classes are moving up to the middle school and high school.
Okay.
We would look at projections, but I think we'll hold pretty steady around what we've seen.
total district.
Right.
Okay, okay.
So we should
I was
shift
speaking
is
to
that-
the middle school.
As needed. Okay.
So I think, are we on the same?
What are we doing Monday night? I still don't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Did this go as well as you intended?
No.
It's
Yeah,
good
I think it's going
conversation.
great. I mean, I don't think it's bad, except I didn't
Well,
plan
for
on
Sarah to
being
kind of
here.
answer your
I'll be at the
question,
tech committee meeting.
Beat the
we
odds.
were charged as,
Wednesday.
on Friday before spring break, the elementary principals were meeting, and we were charged with coming up with multiple plans. So that is something that we, as the elementary, have been working on. I think
Okay.
Marty and his staff have been working on that as well for the high school level, and Craig and I at the middle school. So, starting with our Cadillac version,
Buick.
on down.
Buick.
We're listening.
Plan Q?
And we have Plan Q.
We have a plan. Don't say Cadillac and don't you print that. Print Cadillac.
Yeah.
On top of the line, on down. So we are looking into some of those versus what is ideal for each building at each grade level versus what we can live with.
Okay. And I would like to hear what's behind, option 2 or option 3. I mean, as we scale back, what do we lose?
So do we want the principals to present that? I honestly don't see every subcommittee coming. I mean, I think that they can talk about and answer the questions. I mean, are you guys comfortable with that?
Sarah, it'd be, just have Brian present, he likes to get up in front.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go find something else to buy next month.
Well, and have the principals here to answer the questions that he can't or that they're better suited.
So basically, what we're doing with our plans is one-to-one's the first plan, CARTS K2 maybe is the second plan, CARTS K5, that's kind of how we're working at it.
Well, if we did this,
You know.
I like Marty's idea of a 2-year plan. The 800,000, that's something that's out there, because we're pretty set on that block grant for next year.
Supposedly.
Supposedly,
for 2
we've got
years.
some
Next year, the year
reassurances.
after.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
But, even that 800,000, we could maybe float that, but,
No, I'm good. You guys gotta feel good as long as,
I'm good up to 800, but boy, 4 years out, that's getting a long ways out there with the budget constraints that we're facing on everything. I don't have a plan that's a 4-year plan, but it's 800 up front, and the next 400 comes in year 3.
Yeah.
And 4. I mean, I just, to tie the hands, I mean, it's, None of us may be here.
So work on that and bring it Monday. Maybe we'll vote it through.
All right.
How's that sound?
I'll see you Monday.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
President? We only got 10 more minutes?
Oh, we only have 10 more minutes?
We promised.
That's
What's
it.
that?
She's not gonna make that happen. All right, well, well, you got
Just
a
the-
question, Dean?
Do what?
I asked him if we have exec session.
Oh. You don't think so?
We don't have executive
Yeah,
session.
for just, I mean, like 10 minutes.
Okay. Was Rusty gonna give a report?
Rusty, really quick, I tried to
Okay.
summarize what you had.
Dean,
I didn't do a very good job.
Rusty, before you get up there, let's take a 5-minute recess.
5 minutes.
5-minute recess to reconvene at 8:55, starting now.
Well, congratulations, Rusty. He runs home, marries off his son.
dad's birthday was today, so
That's all it is.
Las Vegas at first on my hands this morning. Hey, take that with
Where's he going in Germany? I'll butcher the name.
We're overdue.
He's a master gunner.
Oh, what a job.
So,
2 minutes
he's
over.
got a master gunner job. Yeah, Rothenberg.
Brian, are you back for round two?
Spent a year and a half in Frankfurt.
Sarah. Yep, let's go.
Hey, Rusty. Let's roll.
Ready to go, Rusty?
We're ready.
Ready, Greg? All right, we'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting. So we got the building and grounds report.
Okay, there's two different things here. Last board meeting, you talked to me a little bit about trying to put some numbers together if we looked at like a 10-year or a 15-year plan. And that was the first letter, I guess, that was sent. And basically, it's taken HTK summary, and in their summary, they have it broke out. Deferred maintenance, and it's broke out by system and then also by the building envelope. And then you combine those two together, and that's going to come up with the $21,668,628 number. And then just divide that by 10. Now, what I've done, I mean, this is a pretty simplistic look at this, but what I've done is, that's only addressing the items that they have in that first survey. We've still got things that we're going to have to do as far as repairs, other roofs that weren't needed at that time that are going to be coming up. So I went ahead and left in the current $980,000 that we're using for that. So when you combine that $980,000 with the $2,166,862, it's going to give you about $3,140,000 to $150,000 a year that you're going to have to spend for the next 10 years. And then if you go on down, it breaks it out for doing it for like a 15-year plan. I'm pretty skeptical that, you know, in 10 to 15 years that the $980,000 is going to keep up with the other deferred maintenance that's going to be coming up during that time. So, like I said, it's a pretty simplistic view, but it gives you a good idea of why a bond's going to be necessary to get ourselves out of this hole. So, the other one is the lighting bid. I sent a lighting bid out February 6th, and I don't know if any of you got out to Hayes High. That was one of the things that when we were doing the meetings at the buildings, that was one of the things that I was really looking forward to showing you, sort of some of the new technology as far as the lighting and stuff, going to the LEDs versus the T12s and T8s that we currently have in there. We took quite a few fixtures out and replaced them with.
Is that what you're, in the gym, that will all be LED as well?
Yes.
Wow.
And if you go into the gym lobby there at the high school, I think that's the most dramatic. There's one section that we done that's went from 12 lights to 6 lights, and I bet you the lighting's twice as good. I mean, it's pretty dramatic when you walk in, you see that spot in the lobby-way of where the lighting is. And it's, you know, depending on what lights you had there, it could be up to 60% more efficient than what we had there, depending on whether they were T8s or T12s.
And that's what I had asked Dean. I think he had kind of thought, is that the reason? I mean, is the lighting in the gym the area that needs to be replaced the most, or is there a reason we're?
The reason that I went with the gym at this point was, one, it had the highest payback. When they done the figures on the gym, they were looking at like a 2.5-year payback on the gyms. For the amount of hours that those lights are on, the way we use them and stuff, that's one of the bigger areas as far as payback. When I first done it, I didn't know where the numbers were going to come in, so I only just had them bid Gym A. Well, then the numbers come in better than what I thought they were going to be, and with the money that I budgeted this year, I could actually do Gym A and Gym B both. Well, we've done the floor at Gym A. I've got Gym B scheduled to do the 1st of July, along with I'm bringing in a group to certify our staff to do gym floors. So we're gonna do GMA's recode at that same, maintenance code at that same time and go ahead and get them certified and get them trained to do our own maintenance codes. Well, had I known February 6th what I know now, I would have put both gyms in on that bid. So what I done is, if we accept the GMA proposal's below 20,000, even going with the GE, you're looking at 19,000. Western Extra Light did put in an alternate bid because they handle Lithonium and they could get it cheaper. The Lithonium lights, from what I found out, basic spec-wise are identical. The one thing that I like about them better, well, there's two things that I like about them better. One, they have a wire guard that goes on them, and that's included in the price, that would protect them from balls and that kind of thing going up there where the GE didn't. And the second thing is for GMA, it's about $3,000 cheaper to go with the Lithonium light. So we went from the 19,000, let me get on my right sheet of paper here so I say this right. We went from 19,788 down to 16,341. And if we go with the GMA proposal, it's below the 20,000. We wouldn't have had to really even bid it. But I also want to make the point that Extra Light bidding exactly what I specified was the lowest bidder on all three options. So it's not like we're, coming in with somebody that wasn't the low bid and going to an option to get lower yet. They were the low bid. I talked to them today, and they confirmed while I was driving to Scott that they would use the same bid numbers if they would do bid Gym B at the same numbers as what they would do Gym A. So if we go ahead and accept option 2, then my intent would be later on to go ahead and do Gym B at that same pricing. And I'd like to do those prior to doing the gym and doing the recoat so that we're not out there with scaffolding and scissor lifts on the floor after we've already coated them. Plus, we'd start our savings a lot quicker on it. Or not our savings, but our payback. And then the other question that I asked them today too, and they agreed to, they were also the lowest, option 1 was doing the rest of the hallway lighting area. And they agreed to hold that bid till the end of June so that we get Gym A and Gym B done in June. If I want, I could bring this back to you and those bid numbers would still be good and we could see about purchasing the rest of the hallway lights so we can finish that part of it out. And then that would put me about just a little over half of what I had budgeted for next year, so then I'd have money still in next year to start looking at doing classrooms or office areas, whichever we look at the next way to go.
What was the budget for, that was one of my questions, do you remember?
The budget for this year, I had 30,000 budgeted in this year, and I had 50,000 for next year.
So you're saying this year's and then 25 of next year's would cover?
Roughly, that's where it would, 30 of next year's. Because we're going to be, if we combine those two numbers together, well, I just lost my own notes here. If we do the Lithonium and do both Gym B and A, we're at 28,738, so we're almost at the 30,000 I budgeted this year. And then if we do the hallways, we're going to be at 30,000 again, so there'd be 20,000 left out of that 50,000 I budgeted for the next year.
What's the hallway payback?
Hallway payback is not as good. Simply because of the way we've been using it. They've been using every other light or every other row of lights. We went ahead and done part of the hallway, and that's another thing that I'd like for you to look at. They're currently using all the lights in that hallway. Just the atmosphere of that hallway has changed immensely, and we're still 5 to 10% more efficient than we were using half the lights that we were using before, because When we pulled those out, most all those were T12s. So, you know, we hadn't even got them upgraded to T8s yet. I think there was only like 2 fixtures that were T8s in that hallway.
Do any of these lights have like the sensors you're starting to see in like hotels and things like that, to where, you know, during certain hours it dims them X amount, things
We
like that?
looked at doing that, and we looked at the payback on that, and
Not worth it.
it just, the hallway wasn't going to be a good enough payback.
Gotcha.
We talked about doing some of that kind of stuff in the classroom, so I think the payback would be a little bit better in there on that. The multi-purpose room, we do have occupancy sensors in there, and we're doing a little bit of that with it. I think it would justify it. You know, it's a big room, and then the way they're using it. But the hallways, we just couldn't really justify it. And to answer your question, I'm not trying to avoid it. It was like a 7-year payback. I mean, 7.5 years. It's just not near as good. Overall, we were looking at a 3 to 4 over the whole building if we'd done the whole building at once.
Is there a reason we can't start on the classrooms as we head into summer?
I just don't think I'm going to have the time in the hallways. I can do, if I order these in June, I figure they're going to be through July, coming in August. School will be started, and I'll be putting them in after school starts. Now, we talked about looking at some areas like office areas, because my intent is to replace everything there, hopefully between the rest of this fiscal year, next fiscal year, and the start of the next fiscal year, is what my intent is based on those numbers that I've got budgeted. It should be close. So that's the thinking behind it. Now, again, if, you know, we go with the numbers that are here, the lights that are here are going to be the same lights that will be used in the classroom too. It doesn't mean we can't move them into the classroom rather than the hallway. I just bid what it would take to do the hallways.
And this is a local company, I see.
Yeah. That's a local vendor.
Are all the other gyms in the school district still the mercury vapor, or are they moved up to fluorescence?
There's a mixture. The middle school actually has T5 technology, so it would be the last one that I would even look at. I mean, it's probably, besides LED, probably the most efficient. There's some that are fluorescent. I think there's one that's fluorescent, and then the most of them are metal halide, just like what's in the. But you're talking, you know, smaller gyms, and you're talking. I mean, middle school would be the next closest one to that size of the high school, and it's already, you know, T5. So.
Is it the entire fixture you change out, or is it just the bulb?
It'd be the whole fixture.
Whole fixture.
On the budget that you had for, we repaired all the things on the
Deferred maintenance?
Yeah, but I was trying to think of the name of the company, but anyway, HDK, yeah.
HDK, the architect?
You know, if you're looking at a 10 or 15-year replacement, I assume you didn't, well, you obviously didn't, based on the numbers, factor in any inflation or anything like that.
No.
And obviously, that would need to be.
Yeah, that's what I said. I just took a really simplistic look. I took their numbers, broke it out over 10 years, took what we've been currently using for basically a maintenance number as far as capital outlay, combined the two together. And it's not a very good representation as far as like inflation or some of the other deferred maintenance that hadn't been taken into consideration.
Well, it doesn't, and I think we all know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure to make the point that it doesn't address any of the needs that were assessed, you know, whether it be extra gymnasium space or any of those type of facility improvements.
No, if you look on that summary sheet, I think it was included with what you've got, it shows all that stuff broke out separate. The only thing that I was looking at was just the 2 rows, the systems and the building systems and building envelope that's under deferred maintenance. As far as renovations and additions, that was all in a separate column, and I didn't look at any of that.
Anybody have any other questions?
So Monday night regarding the lighting, do we need to vote? Or is there anything, action that you,
It's below the 20, I guess if you want to vote on it, that's up to you. I do want you to realize that my intent is to go ahead and do
Right.
Gym B, so the combined figure would be above the 20.
which is the 28,000?
You're going to do them together at one time?
I don't know that I'll be able to get them done together at one time. I'll probably put them in two different projects to get them done, but
I'd rather have you vote on it, just because of that.
Right.
I mean, potential of, there's no reason not to.
okay.
So, we'll put that on that way.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Rusty.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on to topic F, Board of Education policy change recommendations. Dean?
We have the whole list of policy changes. There was a couple that, let me open it up here, that I thought were contradictory, looking for some input on CD, CF, and then we can look at the others and answer questions on any of those, but have you had a chance to look at these and any input on how they should read, or are you fine with the way they are?
Well, I would propose we have something that's more along the lines that reflects that the superintendent's our primary or our sole employee. And that reflects that, I think at one point, and I didn't go back to search for it, but I think there's some language in that says that all administrators are responsible for following board policy. And, but I think that the intent, as I saw it, was that the superintendent would answer to us. Now, the only one, and I don't know if it's in those two, that I had concerns about, and I think we've talked about this before, was there's language that allows the superintendent to assign responsibilities, and we've had some issues on that in the past. Again, I don't anticipate that with you, Dean, but I also don't think we should have policies based upon who the person is in the position. So, I guess the board would have to make sure that they want to, allow that the superintendent can essentially, make those changes without any input. If they wanted to move the high school principal to the elementary school or vice versa, or any of those things, does the board want any input on that? And then what the pay is part of that as well.
All right, I don't know if, Sarah, you took notes there on that. On these two, CD, CF, you want the verbiage to say something to the effect, and we can probably...
That's just my words. I don't know what...
Yeah, I mean, but, well, to clarify, and then we can have that discussion, or... Let's see.
So the blue writing is what you believe is the problem?
Yeah, I just think that they say two different. And, I mean, if you look at CF, then underneath, board reserves the ultimate decision on all matters concerning personnel, policy, expenditures, funds, and all normal, proceed in these areas only after receiving superintendent's recommendation. I just, we've had a lot of conversations on some of these, and are they indicative of what your intent is, I guess?
CF, the part about expenditures of funds, that's when the $20,000 limit comes in, right? Where is that discussed? That's in a different section. So it's really expenditures of funds in excess of $20,000, right? Now regarding personnel, what does everyone believe our policy currently is on that?
Like on CD, you can leave the board out, right? All administrators are ultimately responsible for the board. And then like Greg said, under the board superintendent relations, that's where you would, if I understand you correctly, Greg, that's where you would designate that our one employee is the super?
Well,
Under CD, or CF, I mean?
I think you could just simply say CD would say something like, all administrators are responsible for following board policy and end it there. And then CF would kind of read how it does. I think there's a separate section that allows the superintendent to delegate his responsibilities to others. If not, you could add it there. But I don't think we expect him to do every task that's in there.
Right. No, I couldn't tell you what policy it's under, but there is.
Pull that up.
It might be GACB that it reference, superintendent shall develop a job description for each category. I don't know if that's it.
Yeah.
It's CE, the superintendent may delegate powers and duties to other school personnel. Delegating power or duties, however, shall not relieve the superintendent of responsibility for any action taken. It goes on to say the superintendent shall appoint a designee to serve, that doesn't probably read right, but I think the intent of that was that the superintendent would name or have a recommendation as to who the replacement would be in their absence.
If we, look at, these two policies were the ones, if we just ultimately responsible to follow board policy and leave out the rest of that, and then the bottom one then is just leave as it is.
And what was the next one, CG?
Yeah, CF, I think.
No, on the next.
Do you have a copy? Can somebody put up CF?
I got it.
Yeah, it's up over there.
I made it a little bigger
It's,
for you.
Good with that? And then I know there's a whole list of other ones. I don't know if you've had time, questions, comments on this other list. A lot of these are from KASB's yearly updates, and we have been going through these as administrators. Gosh, Shanna, I don't know where we ended up here. I think, Yeah, we're down to section D. The other ones aren't quite as long. We tried to pick out the most pertinent ones at first, so. But as you see, there's a lot of things here, but we're still working on it, but this is what we have so far, along with KASB's recommendations on policy updates.
I read through and was comfortable with all the others.
Do you want this on the agenda then for approval that way, and we'll make the change in that one? Okay. And then we have, the next item is administrative personnel policy. And Bill, I know, has done some things there. If you want to take that, Bill, and explain that a little bit and get input, whatever. And
You've had some discussions the last couple of months, actually took some action on policy CG, which requires the board to act upon contracts of superintendent and assistant superintendents in February and principals and assistant principals in March. And I revised that policy to, based on the conversations you had about just discussing whether to contracts that would not be renewed. And so I just changed it. Instead of acting upon the contracts, you are making a decision in February whether to non-renew a contract of superintendent or assistant superintendent, and in March on principals and assistant principals, and then in May on classified directors. And I also changed the first sentence in the second paragraph, which stated that the superintendent shall determine the terms and length of each contract, and I changed that to read the superintendent shall recommend to the Board of Education the terms and length of each contract. So what you would do in February, then, you would determine whether or not there were any non-renewals of superintendent or assistant superintendent contract. Do the same thing with principals in March. And at a later date, you would actually approve contracts going forward.
Do we have that proposed language in front of us? Or
Email that to Sarah. Did
do I
that
have the
not get
current
out?
ones?
Sarah, is that linked to it?
I don't have that linked.
I was going to say, this is the old, the existing policy.
Yep, sorry for that. I have it in my hand, but it didn't get attached, so.
Can you email it? Do you have it?
I'll have to find it. Let me see if I can.
Can I just ask a quick question, Bill, even though I know
Sure.
we're probably talking about more. So there, in February, you would be doing which?
February, instead of acting upon the contracts of the superintendent and assistant superintendent, the only action you would take is if there was going to be a recommendation to non-renew either of those contracts. Same thing with principals in March and classified directors then in May.
So you haven't changed the timing of it, you've just changed the words, the verbiage.
Yes.
We're-
Well,
we're
the
not
discussion
approving
was,
contracts.
instead of acting upon the contracts in February or March, they ought to be approved at a later date. And the discussion kind of centered around, well, the only thing that really needed to be determined in February and March was whether a contract was going to be non-renewed.
Was there language in there then on an improvement plan? If one of those persons were on an improvement plan, then that would.
No. But that could be added too.
Right, I guess, I mean, I think maybe before you.
And you've already acted this year anyway, so it isn't anything needs to be done
Be next year.
right away, so it'd be next year. So maybe Sarah can email that proposed language out, and you can review it, and we can discuss it at a later work session too.
The only thing I would say we discuss is if nobody else, well, first, if nobody has any inclination to change it, then maybe we don't need to put it on at all, or, if, you know, that language about the improvement plan, if nobody has any inclination to do that, then those would be two things you could clear up and get off the table, or maybe everybody wants to see the language and then review it then, I don't know.
Dean, were there any concerns raised by anyone about this change?
I haven't, I mean, we talked about this right before, I haven't had time to even show them this, so Wednesday, we have a admin meeting that we will review, and
Let's bring it up to the next work session then.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no hurry, right? Because this
No.
will be in effect for next year. I'd just like to make sure that there's nothing we're overlooking.
yeah, we can do that, so.
Well, and one thing just to point out, and I know that on directors, I don't think we have anything on directors now, do we? As far as the deadline, so I mean, I guess that would be something that members could put on, I guess, as we see it next time. That's all I have.
Do we not have anything on directors?
Classified directors
No,
are
it's
at-will
there.
employees, and they don't have any contracts.
It's in the current policy. The contracts with classified directors shall be acted upon the first regular
Yeah.
meeting of the board in May.
The classified.
Classified
Yeah.
directors.
The
We-
others don't have a.
That's in as a change already. Right, we were gonna change that to certified because the classified directors do not receive contracts.
We really
Okay.
have,
So it'd be the certified directors.
So that'd be the certified. directors.
Right,
do we have any of those that have contracts now?
yes, several.
Well, you would have one.
Donna, Anita.
Just those three? Or is there others?
I think that's what I think it was those three, I believe. Well, we will add that to the next work session.
Okay. We'll move on to other topics for discussion. And Dean, we have a presentation tonight? Is that
Well,
what-
I don't think tonight, do we, Paul? It just,
Okay, it's for Monday.
he will be here Monday with a couple teachers, and they'll review what they've been working on, and pretty neat stuff, so.
No teaser then?
Do what?
No teaser?
No teaser, I guess. If you want to see it, you can.
There's not a.
Yeah,
title?
it's in
we
there,
go.
yeah, it's like a, there you go. Yeah,
He's gonna bring it tomorrow night and use that as part of his introduction.
Yeah, there you go.
there you go.
We'll look forward to seeing that, Paul. All right, well, we do need to have an executive session, and so I'd make the motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of negotiations for 10 minutes to include just the members of the Board of Education, superintendent, and board attorney, to begin at 9:35, ending at 9:45.
Second.
Okay, been motioned by myself, seconded by Board Member Patterson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.